Chapter 1577, Gamble. Wang Su was slightly stunned. The young island master before him was actually claiming that he could emerge unscathed from his attack without fighting back and would admit his loss if he lost a single hair. Yang Su doubted his ears. Young island master, may I ask how long you've been cultivating? If you've been cultivating for a century or longer, it would not be surprising if I can't beat you, Yang Su emotionlessly inquired. If the young island master had already cultivated for several hundred years, he would not be able to harm him. After all, Yang Su was only 20 years old. Suer's right. The young island master has admitted that he's older than Suer, so he's definitely cultivated for far longer. If Suer loses, it's not surprising. Yang Su's mother walked over from afar. She smiled amicably. She had to reveal herself as Yang Su's mother before so many people. Shengguan Aojian sniggered, "Younger brother, I may be older than you, but it's only 3 or 4 years at most. If you think that is unfair, then I'll stand here without dodging at all. At the same time, I won't defend or block your attack, and you can use your entire strength, including any battle skills you've comprehended. If you can get through my skin, it'll be my defeat. How's that?" Yang Su immediately stopped worrying when he learned about Shengguan Aojian's age. However, what Shengguan Aojian said near the end caused his face to warp. He coldly said, "You really think too highly of yourself. Do you think your body is forged from steel? Even steel is no different than soil before me, but since you're so confident, I'll take you up on your offer. I do, however, feel like it'll be more interesting if we make a wager." Near the end, Yang Su mysteriously smiled. "A gamble?" Shengguan Aojian murmured. He could not help but smile mysteriously as well. He said, "Sure. What are you going to wager?" With a flip of his hand, Yang Su pulled out 5 wooden boxes. He said, "I'll wager 5 10,000-year-old heavenly resources. If you win, they'll all belong to you, but if you lose, you need to leave behind all the cultivation methods and battle skills from 3 Saint Island." When the people in the surroundings heard what Yang Su wanted to wager, they immediately began to laugh. 5 10,000-year-old heavenly resources were very valuable, but they were not unique. They could even be bought with purple coins during some larger auctions. However, the cultivation methods and battle skills of 3 Saint Island were truly priceless. They were things that even Saint Emperors would drool over. Basically everyone expected Shengguan Aojian to never agree to what Yang Su had proposed. It was an unfair gamble. "Hee, you want to use 5 10,000-year-old heavenly resources to trade for all of the cultivation methods and battle skills from 3 Saint Island. That would be a bad idea, but I'm going to agree to it." Shengguan Aojian chuckled. All the surrounding people became stunned and they heard how Shengguan Aojian would agree. Disbelief flooded their faces. At that moment, they had no idea what to say. They really were unsure whether the young island master was too confident or truly possessed the strength to back it up. There were some people who even began to attempt to see through Shengguan Aojian's strength. However, he possessed the innate chaotic body and used a completely different cultivation system than the Tian Yuan continent. Coupled with the fact that he was stronger than quite a few of the people present, even Saint Emperors were not able to see his exact strength among the people present. At this moment, Shengguan Aojian slowly pulled out an extremely roughly crafted box from his space ring. He said, "Younger brother, if you really do win, not only will I agree to your request, but I'll even give this to you. If you lose, I don't want your heavenly resources. I just want you to call me elder brother in front of everyone." As he said that, Shengguan Aojian opened the wooden box. A fist-sized violet peach immediately appeared before everyone. All the sainthood experts stopped breathing when they saw the peach. Their eyes all widened as shock filled their faces. Many of their eyes began to burn with desire, revealing deeply hidden greed. "It's a violet cloud peach. It's actually a violet cloud peach. A violet cloud peach can assist a Saint King in breaking through to Saint Emperor. The young island master has actually used a violet cloud peach as his wager." He's squandering it. Aside from Sovereign Jian Chen, there's no one else in the world who has violet cloud peaches. This is a supreme treasure. Every single peach is priceless. Young Island Master, how can you wager something so valuable? You're far too reckless. The appearance of the immortal peach immediately caused the surrounding crowd to explode like gunpowder. They were thrown into an uproar. There was rarely a person who could remain composed when looking at an immortal peach. At the same time, a few people managed to calm down, and the gazes they sent Shangguan Aojian became stern. Not only did the young island master possess violet cloud peaches, but he declared that he would gamble it, and the two women beside him did not stop him. This clearly indicated that the two of them did not mind that Shangguan Aojian could potentially lose the peach, or maybe they did not think he would lose at all. Suer's already lost, thought Changyang Ba. There was no need for the fight. He already knew the outcome. He even believed that the young island master had already ingested an immortal peach. However, Changyang Su did not reach the same conclusion. His eyes reddened at the sight of the immortal peach in Shangguan Aojian's hands. He knew that all immortal peaches came from his uncle. However, even as the young master of the Changyang clan, having consumed countless heavenly resources across the years, he had never seen the legendary violet cloud peach, let alone owned one. Even his grandfather did not have one. I must win this fight. I have to win no matter what the price is. I must obtain the violet cloud peach. Changyang Su drooled inside. The violet cloud peach was the only shortcut to sainthood. If he obtained it, he would quickly become a powerful expert. Changyang Su immediately began to move. He wielded his saint weapon and aggressively charged towards Shangguan Aojian as a blur. His saint weapon was a sword that was 2 fingers wide. Wind-attributed saint force coiled around it as he stabbed at Shangguan Aojian's chest as quickly as he could. Shangguan Aojian smiled as if he was watching a jest. He stood there without dodging or using any protective energies either. He was a sitting duck. When Changyang Su's sword struck Shangguan Aojian, his clothes turned to tatters, but there was not a single wound on his body. Changyang Su's full-powered attack could not even make it through Shangguan Aojian's skin. Chapter 1578, Shock. This is impossible. How can your body be so powerful? It's even tougher than high-class magical beasts. Changyang Su stared at Shangguan Aojian in shock and disbelief. At that moment, he even began to suspect that Shangguan Aojian was a high-class magical beast that had assumed a human form. How else could he explain how Shangguan Aojian's body was so tough? Changyang Su was only a great saint master, but he grew up in the Changyang clan, so he had come in contact with many sainthood experts throughout his childhood. He had gained a rough understanding of the strength of sainthood experts, but according to what he knew, saint rulers were still unable to endure a full-powered attack from him if they did not use saint force. Even saint kings would not be able to accomplish such a feat. Only magical beasts could achieve such a tough body. What a tough body. Probably only Sovereign Jian Chen has a body as tough as that aside from magical beasts, said an old man in the crowd. His voice was filled with amazement. He was a saint emperor. I may not be able to see the young island master's strength, but just that attack is enough to determine that the young island master has definitely exceeded everyone's expectations. No wonder he's from 3 Saint Island. He's so powerful just at the age of 23. He's no worse than Sovereign Jian Chen in the past, actually, said a middle-aged man. He was an ancestor of an ancient clan and a saint king at the 9th heavenly layer. The young island master really is worthy of being called a prodigy, but in my opinion, there's still a great difference from Sovereign Jian Chen. After all, Sovereign Jian Chen obtained his strength through his own effort, unlike the young island master and the younger master of the Changyang clan, whose strength originates from the support of their families, and the young island master has probably eaten a violet cloud peach in the past. A ruddy old man nonchalantly added his thoughts to the mix. Many human experts all clasped their fists at the old man when they saw him. They showed some respect. The old man was Zhangxiong. He was different from everyone else, having become a saint emperor from his own hard work, unlike the other Saint Emperors who had all eaten violet cloud peaches. After ingesting an immortal peach, his strength had reached the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Emperor. Among the 4 races, there were only a few people who had reached the 9th heavenly layer as Saint Emperors. Aside from Tsangqiong and Yadrium, there were the 4 brothers, Ada, Air, Asen, and Aci. And now that the seal preventing breakthroughs to the origin realm was gone, it was likely that the 6 peak Saint Emperors would break through. "Brother, do you admit defeat?" Shangguan Aojian indifferently asked as he stood there with his arms crossed. Changyang Su coldly snorted and said, "Even if you're the young island master of 3 Saint Island, you have no right to claim you're better than me. I'd like to see if you can emerge unscathed from my Earth Tier battle skill." With that, Changyang Su roared out. Saint Force surged out of his body without any restraint at all. He was enveloped by a thick layer of azure light, caused by his wind-attributed Saint Force. As he used the Earth Tier battle skill, violent gusts of wind appeared in the Changyang clan, kicking dust and sand into the air. At this moment, Changyang Ba casually waved his hand. With that, all the dust and sand in the air vanished. Meanwhile, he looked at Changyang Su and nodded, feeling satisfied. He thought, impressive. I never thought that Su'er had comprehended such a great Earth Tier battle skill. Wind assassination. After charging up, Changyang Su finally cast his Earth Tier battle skill. His entire body seemed to have fused with the wind as he charged at Shangguan Aojian with a speed far beyond what a great Saint Master could exhibit. The wind-attributed Saint Force on his Saint weapon had compressed as well. Thud. With a heavy sound, Changyang Su's Earth Tier battle skill firmly landed on Shangguan Aojian, and it erupted with quite a powerful ripple of energy. Changyang Su clearly found the energy ripple difficult to endure as a great Saint Master, so he was forced to rapidly retreat. He became rather pale. It was quite difficult for him to use a powerful Earth Tier battle skill. However, Changyang Su paid no attention to himself. He stared ahead. His eyes were filled with eagerness. He was eager to see Shangguan Aojian injured by the attack. If Shangguan Aojian was injured, even just a tiny bit, the violet cloud peach would become his spoils as agreed upon earlier. However, Changyang Su was completely stunned a moment later. Disbelief flooded his eyes. Shangguan Aojian had emerged unscathed after taking on the Earth Tier battle skill with his body. Even Changyang Su's strongest attack failed to leave a mark on Shangguan Aojian. "Impossible, this is impossible. You're cheating. You must have been cheating," Changyang Su cried out rather crazily. He refused to accept this fact. The young island master was only 3 or 4 years older than him, yet he possessed such a terrifying strength. He was unable to do anything to just his body, which was a great shock to Changyang Su, who had always been arrogant and acted condescendingly. The violet cloud peach. Yes, it must be the violet cloud peach. You must have consumed it, which is why you possess this strength. This is unfair. If I had a violet cloud peach as well, you would never be my opponent, Changyang Su loudly declared. At that moment, he suddenly felt envious, so envious that he almost turned green. At the same time, he felt more and more displeased by his uncle. He thought, my uncle is just too biased. He is willing to give a violet cloud peach to an outsider but not me. Shangguan Aojian, there's nothing for you to be complacent about. You've won, but you've obtained your strength from a violet cloud peach. Otherwise, you would have never been my opponent. Changyang Su was very reluctant to give in. He was still extremely arrogant even when the situation had developed like this. He did not know how to stand down. Shangguan Aojian did not become angered. "Younger brother, why don't you think about whether you'd still have your current accomplishments if you didn't have an entire clan supporting you from behind? If they had spent their cultivation resources on someone else, they'd also be able to attain what you have today. I must admit that I only have my strength today because of the violet cloud peach and various heavenly resources, but so what? That's nothing to be arrogant about." Changyang Su was completely tongue-tied. His face alternated between dark and pale. He had always been arrogant and viewed himself better than others, even looking down on the other people the same age as him. However, the achievements he took pride in were described as nothing by Shengguan Aojin, and he just happened to not know how to respond. Chapter 1579, Gifts. The young island master is right. Sewer, you really grown too arrogant over the past few years. Look at the young island master. He's so young and possesses such strength, yet he maintains a low profile. He views fame and glory as nothing. If this had not happened in the clan today, the young island master would probably have kept his strength hidden. You should learn from him. No matter how glorious your achievements are, you cannot become arrogant and cocky, much less condescending. It's just like what the young island master said before, there is always a person better than you out there. You have to take this to heart. Changyang Ba walked over and gently gave Changyang Su some words of advice before turning to Shengguan Aojin. There was clearly admiration for the young island master in his eyes. I seem to see Xianger's shadow on the young island master. Xianger also liked to keep a low profile when he was young. He never showed off his talent. Even when the Saint Force test had gone wrong and he had been deemed a cripple, he could have explained it all, but he did not, paying no attention to what others thought of him. Instead, he remained in the clan and cultivated quietly. Only when he got into a conflict with a person from the kitchen did he reveal his strength. The greatest pride in my life is Xianger. The glory the clan has today all comes from him. If the clan did not have him, the clan would not be here today. Changyang Ba could not help but emotionally sigh. He felt strangely attached to Shengguan Aojin. Shengguan Aojin made him remember the familiar face. He really could see Jian Chen's shadow on Shengguan Aojin. Shengguan Aojin said nothing. He paid attention to Changyang Ba as Changyang Ba talked about Jian Chen's past. It seemed like he found Jian Chen extremely interesting. Whether it was something significant or insignificant, he was unwilling to miss a single detail. The only pity was that Changyang Ba stopped talking about Jian Chen's childhood after saying just a little. And then? Seeing how Changyang Ba showed no intentions of continuing, Shengguan Aojin could not help but ask. Changyang Ba looked at Shengguan Aojin with a smile. The young island master seems to be very interested in Xianger's past. Shengguan Aojin nodded. He did not deny that. Fair enough. I've taken a liking to you since my first glance. Since the young island master is so interested in Xianger's past, feel free to stay for a few days after the ceremony comes to a close, Changyang Ba offered. He realized that he was liking the young island master more and more. Then I'll disturb you for a few days with my two sisters. Shengguan Aojin agreed with pleasure. He had not told Changyang Ba how he was related to him, but he had already begun to treat the Changyang clan as his own family. At the same time, he had obtained a rather good impression of his grandfather after meeting him the first time. Oh right, I've prepared some small gifts for the patriarch and the four madams, Shengguan Aojin continued. Two exquisitely decorated boxes appeared in his hands. They were completely made from purple gold, making them possess great quality yet not going overboard. Just the two boxes were priceless. When Shengguan Aojin mentioned the patriarch, he also mentioned the four madams, so everyone understood that he was referring to the old patriarch and not Changyang Ku, because only Changyang Ba had 4 wives. Changyang Ba joyously accepted the 2 boxes from Shengguan Aojin. For some reason, he felt even happier than received 100,000-year-old heavenly resources when he received Shengguan Aojin's gifts. Even though he had no idea what was inside them, this was the first time he had felt giddy during the ceremony. He clearly did not pay too much attention to what was inside the boxes. Changyang Ba did not plan on opening the boxes and instead passed them to a servant standing by his side. Our young island master's gifts must be extraordinary. Why don't you open them and have a look, patriarch? Xiao Qian suddenly encouraged Changyang Ba to open the gift while standing beside Shengguan Aojin. Xiao Qian belonged to 3 Saint Island and her master was a sovereign. Many guests in the surroundings immediately became curious when even she described the gifts as extraordinary. Some good friends of Changyangba urged him to open the boxes so that they could all see what was in them. Fair enough. Since everyone's so interested, let's see what the young island master has gifted me, Changyangba said with a straightforward tone. With a friendly smile, he opened a box from the servant next to him. All the guests in the surroundings held their breaths as they watched. Very soon, the box was opened and a faint fragrance immediately drifted out. With just a slight sniff, all the people immediately felt their concentration gather together. At that moment, they felt like their heads had become extremely light and their souls had grown. The mysteries of the world that they could not comprehend earlier seemed to have become clearer, where they felt like they were about to break through. This phenomenon immediately shocked everyone in the surroundings. They all stared at the box. Just the fragrance from it possessed such an unimaginable effect. They all became extremely curious as to what treasure was inside. Inside the box rested a pouch of fragrance. The fragrance originated from the pouch. The young island master's gift is just far too valuable, Changyangba sighed in surprise. Everyone understood the value of the pouch of fragrance after just a single whiff. It had surpassed everyone else's gifts. This pouch of fragrance was personally created by our young island master. He used the powder of many heavenly resources. Just the 100,000-year-old heavenly resources amount to 12, Xiaoyu said. What? He used 1,200,000-year-old heavenly resources to create a pouch of fragrance? Isn't the young island master just too wealthy? Even peak organizations find 100,000-year-old heavenly resources rare treasures, yet the young island master has used 12 of them to make a pouch of fragrance. How can those peak organizations match up to that? All the guests became stunned by what Xiaoyu had said. The young island master could no longer be described as just wealthy. Xiaoyu giggled as she heard the sighs of surprise in the surroundings. She continued, the 100,000-year-old heavenly resources are only the average standard used to make this fragrance pouch. As for the heavenly resources beyond that, I won't describe them since they've even surpassed my understanding. Even I don't know their names. What? The 100,000-year-old heavenly resources are only average? Oh my god, is this really a pouch of fragrance? Including Changyangba, everyone became stunned. Disbelief flooded their faces. Shangguan Aojian smiled at everyone's reactions. He spoke like everyone was normal. I used 3 years to create this pouch of fragrance. When you wear it, not only does help you concentrate by collecting your thoughts and removing anything that bothers your mind, but it can also assist by helping you comprehend the mysteries of the world when you cultivate with it. It's even effective for radiant saint masters. I've specifically prepared this for the 4th madam. Changyangba blankly stared at the pouch of fragrance. The young island master had actually gifted such a precious thing to Bai Yuntian. He had no idea what to say because the gift was just too precious. It sure sounds great from how you describe it, but who knows if it's fake. Changyang Su mumbled to himself in a voice that only he could hear. He really envied the young island master. He was the young master of the Changyang clan. Although he had consumed a few 10,000-year-old heavenly resources, he had never touched or even seen 100,000-year-old heavenly resources, yet the young island master had used 12 of them to make a pouch of fragrance. Patriarch, the 2nd box was also specially prepared for you by the young island master, Xiaoyu said again, urging Changyangba to open the 2nd box. Changyangba sucked in a deep breath and slowly placed the lid back on the 1st box. At this moment, he discovered his hand had begun to tremble slightly. The young island master had used 1,200,000-year-old heavenly resources to make a pouch of fragrance, and they were only regarded as average among everything that went into the pouch. It was probably the only object in the world to have so many extravagant resources poured into it. Uncle Chang arrived beside Changyangba. After passing the box to Uncle Chang to look after, he picked up the other box from the servant and carefully opened it. Chapter 1580, Departure. The young island master sure is extravagant. Just the gift to the 4th madam was made from more than 100,000-year-old heavenly resources and heavenly resources superior to that. Just its value is unimaginable. I wonder what the young island master is giving to the patriarch. I think the second gift from the young island master must even exceed the value of the first. We can tell just from the looks of the young island master and the two women beside him. I wonder what it is. Many of the surrounding guests mumbled to themselves and began discussions with one another out of interest. They could say that just the first gift from Shangguan Aojian had exceeded what the various peak organizations could afford to give out, so the second gift obviously garnered much of their attention as well. Finally, Changyang Ba opened the second box under everyone's curious gazes. They immediately saw a fist-sized violet peach. It was a violet cloud peach. That was not all that was in the box. Beside it lay a palm-sized leaf and 3 glistening, earthen yellow crystals. Pure energy would surge within the crystals from time to time. It's a violet cloud peach and comprehension tea leaf. No, this one is clearly different from the immortal peach that the young island master had taken out earlier. Not only is this peach larger, its color is deeper. It's clearly even better than the immortal peach he had taken out earlier. The young island master actually has 2 violet cloud peaches. Oh my God, everyone in the world will be envious of him. What kind of treasure is a violet cloud peach? Come to think of it, I only ate a small piece of the peach back then. Being able to eat a whole peach is just a wild dream of mine, yet the young island master has taken out 2 today. The heavenly enchantress really does dote on the young island master. Aside from sovereign Jian Chen, no one has violet cloud peaches. The young island master must have obtained his from sovereign Jian Chen. At that moment, more than half of the sainthood experts gathered there looked at Shangguan Aojian with a gaze of great envy. Violet cloud peaches were treasures that even saint emperors would drool over. Even origin realm sovereigns would find them irresistible because a single peach was equivalent to several hundred or even thousands of years of cultivation. It was the only heavenly resources that could allow people to drastically power up in a short amount of time. Many people present had not been able to enjoy a full peach all to themselves, yet Shangguan Aojian had pulled out 2. They immediately became green with envy. Changyang Su was affected in particular. When he saw Shangguan Aojian pull out 2 violet cloud peaches and even a comprehension tea leaf, he had become as envious as he could be. At the same time, he felt more and more displeased by his uncle. My uncle is so biased. The young island master's not even his family, yet why has he given so many to the young island master? He's even given him comprehension tea leaves. Yet I haven't received anything at all. Changyang Su glared at Shangguan Aojian, as if he was about to erupt into a rage. Only now did he suddenly realize that he was just a jester before the young island master. He had always taken pride in being able to use 10,000-year-old heavenly resources as he wished and that he could access the various battle skills in the clan. His strength and talent indicated he was a prodigy as well, having become a great saint master at the young age of 20. Even with the entire world in perspective, the number of people who had achievements like him at his age could be counted on a single hand, or maybe, there was not a single person as prodigious as him. Only when the young island master appeared before him did he suddenly realize that the things he took pride in were nothing special. It's all because of Uncle. It's all Uncle's fault. Changyang Su blamed Jian Chen for everyone and did not admit that he was worse than the young island master. He blamed his uncle because he was the young master of the Changyang clan, so his status was great. He did not allow himself to be worse than anyone. He had adapted to the mindset that he was better than everyone else. I think everyone is familiar with the violet cloud peach and comprehension tea leaf, but I don't think you've seen the 3 crystals. Any single of the crystals are equivalent to class 9 monster cores, but they're even better. These are my small gifts to the patriarch. If the patriarch uses the 3 crystals to cultivate, your strength will increase drastically in a very short amount of time. You can ingest the violet cloud peach after several decades and you'll become a saint emperor for sure, Shangguan Aojian said loudly. Good. 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 I'll accept the great gifts from the young island master then. Ha ha ha, these are the most valuable gifts I have ever received in my life. Changyang Ba laughed aloud and did not try to turn them down. He put the lid back on and passed it to Uncle Chang. At the same time, Changyang Su's eyes lit up. He had already made up his mind while staring at the box with the violet cloud peach. After the ceremony ended, he would go and find his grandfather and request the immortal peach. He refused to believe that he was unable to defeat the young island master after eating the peach. Shangguan Aojian noticed Changyang Su's gaze. He sniggered inside and walked over. He said, "Brother, you've lost. You still have to call me elder brother." Changyang Su's face sank. He coldly stared at Shangguan Aojian and frigidly said, "You've only won because you've eaten a violet cloud peach. The fight between us was unfair, so I'm not going to admit defeat. I'll challenge you again in half a year's time, alright, then I'll be waiting for your challenge." Shangguan Aojian did not take the matter to heart. He turned around and left after saying that, but he seemed to think of something after taking a few steps. He turned around and chuckled at Changyang Su, "Brother, you're probably waiting for your uncle to return and give you violet cloud peaches, right? I'd advise you to give up on that thought. If you don't change your mindset, your uncle will never support you because your uncle dislikes wastrels." Changyang Ba glanced at Shangguan Aojian with deep meaning when he heard that. He clearly understood that Shangguan Aojian's words were for him despite the fact that Shangguan Aojian was speaking to Changyang Su. However, Changyang Ba said nothing. He had clearly noticed that his only grandson really did have a few places that needed improvement after seeing the behavior of the young island master of Three Saint Island. Shangguan Aojian remained a few days longer at the Changyang clan. Because of his identity as the young island master of Three Saint Island and since he was accompanied by Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu, he possessed a very great status in the Changyang clan. Even the ancestors from the Zhu branch personally came out to greet him. Shangguan Aojian was very polite, even treating the servants of the clan with great courtesy. When he saw senior members of the clan, he would bow to them as a junior without putting on any airs, so all the people in the clan took a great liking to the young island master. Bai Yuntian, in particular, treated Shangguan Aojian like her own relative. She liked him very much. Shangguan Aojian did not reveal that he was Jian Chen's son, so all of the people in the clan still had no clue. He only moved about as the young island master of Three Saint Island. While he stayed at the Changyang clan, Shangguan Aojian learned many things about his father's past. Of course, no one else knew that Bai Yuntian was telling him all these things. Several days later, Shangguan Aojian bid farewell to Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian. He left the Changyang clan with his two sisters while maintaining a low profile. "Xiao Bao, where do you want to go next?" Xiao Qian asked Shangguan Aojian while walking down a busy street in Lore City. "I want to go visit the Huayun sect and see their sect master, Qingmingxiang." Chapter 1581, Tai Ta emerges. The most eastern part of the wasteland continent belonged to the elves. 100,000 kilometers from the inhabited forest was an extremely large tomb. The tomb was snow-white, constructed from solar essence metal. This was the only mineral that was mined on the continent. It was formed from ordinary stone while in a dry environment, absorbing the power of the sun for countless years. It was very valuable on the wasteland continent. Its value even exceeded the value of tungsten alloy on the Tian Yuan continent. The metal was extremely tough, making it virtually indestructible without the strength of a saint ruler. On the continent, the metal was a resource that only large clans or organizations could use because not only could it be used to create high-quality weapons, but it also possessed a sliver of the sun's power. With a unique secret technique, people could refine the power of the sun hidden within and use it for cultivation. However, even among the powerful organizations on the wasteland continent, there was not a lot of the metal. However, the huge tomb was completely built out of it, making it seem like just a single piece. There were no cracks nor any signs left behind from when it was constructed. It was impossible to destroy solar essence metal without the strength of a saint ruler, yet the tomb seemed to be created from a single piece of the metal. Even ignoring just how valuable the entire tomb was, just constructing it would have been a difficult matter. The marks on the tomb showed that it has existed for an extremely long amount of time. Even though the tomb was completely clean, without a speck of dust, it was still unable to hide the marks left behind by time. The extravagant tomb had stood there for a very long time. Not only was there no one who dared to covet it, but it was also worshipped by all of the races on the wasteland continent. Many saint kings among them that worshipped it, causing the tomb to become a sacred land that no one could blaspheme. This was the tomb of Ergens. Even though he had fallen in battle many years ago, he still lived on in the hearts of all his clansmen. At the same time, this was where Ergens' remains had been sealed. A powerful seal existed beneath the tomb. Many people would come to Ergens' tomb. They would kneel, pray, and clean the tomb, and today was obviously not an exception. Over 10,000 people were praying before the tomb. However, at this moment, the ground began to gently tremble. The earth moved, as if the entire continent was shaking. Even the tomb began to shake. At the same time, a tremendous presence emerged from the depths of the structure. The power of the presence made the earth shake. At that moment, the entire wasteland continent was enveloped by the extremely tremendous presence, while the wind and clouds had already begun to churn in the sky above. The thick layers of clouds above the continent rapidly dispersed due to the crushing presence, turning into nothingness. The tremendous presence soon extended beyond the wasteland continent. In just a short moment, it engulfed the Tianyuan continent, the beast god continent, the sea realm, and the Arctic tundra, basically the entire world. It shocked everyone who felt it. The several Origin Realm experts in the Supreme Divine Hall all glanced in the direction of the wasteland continent. They were joyful. "It's Tai Ta. He's broken through," said Feng Xiaotian as he smiled faintly. "Fantastic, we've become stronger yet again," said the sea goddess. Tai Ta had finally emerged from seclusion after 3 years, which relieved the Origin Realm experts who continued to stand guard in the Divine Hall. Space gates opened one after another outside Ergens' tomb. Many saint kings and saint emperors hurried over as soon as possible. Not only were there people from the 100 races, but there were magical beast and human saint kings and saint emperors as well. In the past, any outsider would definitely met obstructions in the form of experts from the 100 races if they had come to this holy place, but they were all united under a single cause now, having completely abandoned their previous territorial practices. As a result, the 100 races welcomed the arrival of the humans and magical beasts. It's the war god. The war god has emerged from seclusion, the experts of the 100 races all cried out as they gathered outside the tomb. Their voices were filled with joy. It was possible to tell with a single glance that the war god's strength had increased. The 100 races viewed the war god as their spiritual leader, so they were naturally extremely excited to learn that Tai Ta's strength had increased. The war god has finally reappeared after disappearing for 3 years. Over the past 3 years, the war god must have been receiving Ergens' legacy in the tomb. I wonder what level the war god's strength will have reached now that he is emerging. I wonder if he surpassed the human sovereign. The human sovereigns vanished for 3 years as well, and there's been no news of him. If the human sovereign's strength has not increased at all in the past 3 years, he'll no longer be the war god's opponent. The war god and the winged tiger god have a feud. The war god's strength has increased yet again, but the winged tiger god only broke through to the Origin Realm after receiving the legacy in the Beast God Hall and has been in the Supreme Divine Hall for the past 3 years. The winged tiger god's strength has not increased at all, so he is probably no longer the war god's opponent. Many thoughts sprang into the heads of the human and magical beast experts. Without a doubt, the increase of the war god's strength had drastically raised the 100 races' status. At this moment, the terrifying presence that made the world shake suddenly vanished. A dazzling golden light appeared before the tomb. It hung in the sky like a miniature sun, illuminating the surroundings with a blinding light. In the light was a blurry figure, and without any surprise, that figure belonged to Tai Ta. We welcome the war god after emerging from seclusion. All the people from the 100 races knelt and loudly cried out. Their voices were filled with excitement and joy. The humans and magical beasts did not kneel, but they looked at Tai Ta with polite gazes and bowed. There's no need to be so courteous. I'm going to the Divine Hall in Mercenary City immediately, so I'll be leaving first. Tai Ta said with his deep, soft voice. After that, he used his mysteries of war and slammed through space with his body. He traversed through the void, headed to the Supreme Divine Hall. The golden light on Tai Ta was concealed in the Supreme Divine Hall. Tai Ta held a piece of beast fur as he stood there. His skin glistened like gold, and there was even a metallic luster, like treasure, on the surface of his skin. Tianjian, the white tiger, Xiaoling, Xiaojin, the sea goddess, Yang Lai, and so on all gathered their attention on Tai Ta and closely examined him. However, none of them were able to discern just what level of cultivation Tai Ta had reached. Tai Ta, are you currently receival or returnance? The sea goddess asked. Tai Ta scratched his head and said, I don't know what I've reached. My cultivation method is different from all of yours. However, I feel like I don't have to fear Ouyang Yangwen anymore. Oh right, the beast fur I have right now was created from the fusion of the 18 pieces. Only after joining them together did I discover another secret in the beast furs. Chapter 1582, Secret of the Beast Furs, 1. Tai Ta held out the beast fur in his hand and slowly glanced at the people in front of him and the fused beast fur from time to time. The beast fur had become visibly larger after all the smaller beast furs had fused together. Tai Ta's expression was rather strange, filled with some confusion. He was rather puzzled. It was as if the secret hidden within the beast fur made Tai Ta extremely surprised and that there were many aspects that he did not understand. All the Origin Realm experts looked at the beast fur as well. Even though they could see that the secret hidden within the beast fur was probably extraordinary due to Tai Ta's expression, none of them did not proceed to take the fur. What secret's hidden inside? Let me have a look. In the end, Xiaoling was the first one to move. As childish as she was, she obviously did not try to push it away out of courtesy. Her bright eyes were filled with interest and curiosity. She grabbed the beast fur from Tai Ta's hands. She used her small hands to unfold it and found that there was nothing on the snow-white fur. All she could feel was gentle fur. Xiaoling paused before examining the beast fur in closer detail. Doubt filled her face, but as soon as she became doubtful, she seemed to think of something. Her eyes lit up as she said, I understand. I can only see the secret by using my soul. Hee hee. Xiaoling curiously giggled as she sent her soul into the beast fur. Everyone gathered their attention on Xiaoling. The secret within the beast fur had even shocked and confused Tai Ta, so they were curious to learn its secret, but no one wanted to take the lead. However, just a few seconds after Xiaoling sent her soul into the beast fur, her face suddenly changed, and she could not help but tremble. Her eyes became misty as translucent tears welled up in her eyes. She seemed very sad. Sob, Master, Master, where are you? Don't abandon me. I miss you so much, Master, where are you? Surprisingly, Xiaoling suddenly began to cry after sending her soul into the beast fur. She became extremely sorrowful as tears poured from her eyes like a fountain. As the tears ran down her cheek, they struck the floor with a pitter-patter, splashing into smaller drops. Xiaoling's tears flowed without stopping as she sobbed. She seemed to have gone from a happy girl to an abandoned child in a single moment. She became extremely sad and filled with sorrow. She seemed completely helpless. Tianjian, the sea goddess, Houston, Yang Lai, Feng Xiaotian, Gui Haidao, Tai Ta, and so on all looked at each other. All of them were speechless. However, everyone could sympathize with Xiaoling as she cried. All of them felt pity for her. At the same time, everyone became even more curious as to what secret was hidden within the beast fur. Sister Xiaoling, don't cry. You still have me. I'm your younger brother, Xiaojin, Xiaojin said as he held Xiaoling's hand. Although 3 years had already passed, Xiaojin had not changed at all. He looked the same as before, a 3 or 4-year-old old. He looked naive and cute. When Xiaojin spoke, he grabbed the beast fur from Xiaoling's hand. Without any interest in the secret hidden within the beast fur, he shoved it into Houston's hands. To Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling suddenly began to cry because of the beast fur. He obviously could not let it remain with Xiao Ling any longer. The white tiger in human form also seemed to remember the father he had never met when he saw how sad Xiao Ling had become. Indescribable sorrow appeared on his face as well. He stood there silently without saying anything at all. Over the past 3 years, the white tiger had always remained silent. He rarely spoke, making him seem cold. His face appeared the same as before, remaining just as youthful as before with snow-white hair. However, the childishness on his face was gone. It had been replaced by resolute and cold expression that did not suit his age. He looked as heroic as a general that had gone through many wars. When Houston obtained the beast fur, everyone immediately shifted their gazes to him. Houston silently thought about what to do before throwing the beast fur into the air. He froze it in the air with an invisible power so that it would not fall to the ground. Since everyone is so interested in the secret hidden inside, why don't we all have a look together? Houston said to everyone. Aside from Tai Ta, Xiao Jin, and Xiao Ling, everyone sent their souls into the beast fur. Even Tian Jian was not an exception. He sent his soul inside in order to observe the mysteries hidden within. There seemed to be a whole different world within the beast fur. When everyone's soul entered the beast fur, they saw the vast outer space. Stars packed every inch of the surroundings while glistening brightly. Everyone became stunned at the sight. None of them had thought that there would be an entire world hidden within the beast fur. The world was not particularly large, but what shocked them even more was that they could actually sense a complete set of laws in the sea of stars. These laws were not present in the world they came from. At the same time, after a closer examination, they realized that the laws were extremely complete but different from the laws outside, as if they were missing something else. As a result, the universe they stood in no longer seemed complete. Slaughter governs life. It reigns above all life and moves through the fate of all organisms. My way is the way of slaughter. At this moment, a vague voice rang out in the heads of everyone like a great bell. As the voice rang out, the vast sea of stars seemed to vibrate. Countless stars glistened and alternated between light and dark. They seemed to be alive. With that, a white-robed man silently appeared before everyone. His clothes and long hair gently fluttered. He had his back to everyone, obscuring his face. His body was filled with the strange presence of ways, making him seem like he had fused with the world, as if he was the world or, maybe in other words, like the world had conjured him. Who is this? Is this the winged tiger god? The Origin Realm experts were all shocked. Their powers were greatly restricted in this world that seemed both real and imaginary. They seemed to have become ordinary people. Chapter 1583, Secret of the Beast Furs, 2. No matter who you are, it must be fate for you to be able to arrive here. This space was conjured by my abilities from a strand of the origin of slaughter. The moment you comprehend it, you will become my disciple in name. At this moment, the white-robed man moved. With a single step, the surrounding stars immediately changed and the galaxies turned. No one knew just how far he had traversed the cosmos with that step, but he seemed to have arrived at the other end of the universe. A huge planet appeared before him. He slowly raised his hand and swept it past the planet with a single finger raised. As he swiped with his finger, the entire universe trembled violently, as if a great power that originated from the world was rapidly condensed. The power was filled with ruthlessness and destruction. Anything could be annihilated before it. With the man's swipe, the power sliced toward the planet and silently cleaved it in two. The man then reached toward the two halves of the planet. The vegetation on the halves withered at that moment before turning into dust. After the vegetation dissolved, even the planet disintegrated in the man's hand, turning into dust that began to drift through the universe. Even though it was a vision, all the Origin Realm experts became extremely shocked and they personally witnessed this scene. The strength of the white-robed man completely exceeded their imaginations. The planet that had just been disintegrated was even larger than the planet they lived on, yet it had been cleaved into two in a single swipe and turned to dust just by extending his hand. Just how powerful did he have to be to do something like that? They could not be more shocked at that moment. Even Yang Lai, Gui Hai Dao, and Feng Xiaotian, who originated from a higher world, felt the same way. They were completely dumbfounded. The white-robed man did not stop. Every time he moved, his actions possessed devastating might, enough to shake the entire universe. He destroyed countless stars and planets. His movements were imbued with the power of laws while his body resonated with the world. He gave off a strand of presence from the world, and at the same time, the man would describe the way he had comprehended things to everyone every time he moved. He was passing on a way of the 3,000 great ways, the laws of the world. The white-robed man was displaying the way of slaughter before everyone in the clearest fashion possible through a unique method. Laws were the power of those at godhood as well as the key to godhood. Under standard circumstances, only those at late reciprocity could come in contact with laws, and once they grasped a law, they would immediately pass through the gate to godhood. If people below late reciprocity grasped laws, they would not reach godhood immediately, but their power would drastically increase. Among the same cultivation realm, they were invincible unless there was someone else who had grasped the laws of the world. The sea goddess, Yang Lai, and the other origin realm experts obviously knew the white-robed man was passing on his way. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so they obviously could not miss it. All of them calmed down and attempted to comprehend the true essence of the way. They all wanted to comprehend the way of slaughter. Probably only the white tiger did not become absorbed by it. He stared at the white-robed man's back as the light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty. This was because the method of how the white-robed man was passing on his way was exactly the same as the legacy he had received in the Beast God Hall. The only difference was that the legacy he had received contained a strand of slaughter origin energy. After he comprehended the states of life and death, he absorbed the slaughter origin energy, and it became a part of his power. However, the middle-aged man allowed everyone to comprehend the way of slaughter through exhibiting its power. If they could comprehend it, they would succeed, but if they could not, they would fail. He was passing on the same way, but the treatment they received was completely different. No, this isn't the complete way of slaughter. The way of slaughter contains the states of life and death. What's being passed on only contains the state of death. It's missing the state of life. Even if you comprehend it, it won't be the complete way. A gleam of light flashed through the white tiger's eyes. He did not doubt who the middle-aged man was since they were in the beast fur and the man was exhibiting the same way of slaughter as the winged tiger god. The middle-aged man before them was definitely the winged tiger god from ancient times. Time silently passed and the man finally stopped exhibiting the way of slaughter after some time. The origin realm experts all roused from their comprehension, but all of them were dejected. Clearly, they had failed to benefit from his teachings. Comprehending laws was nothing easy. Even with the white-robed man invoking the laws, they could not be comprehended them in a short amount of time since they were still quite far off from late reciprocity. At this moment, the white-robed man slowly turned around, revealing a valiant appearance. Only now did everyone see who the man was. Everyone's pupils narrowed at the sight of the man's appearance, and their eyes immediately widened. Disbelief filled their faces. Mo Tianyun, the city lord, the sea goddess and Tianjian could not help but cry out as their hearts churned. This was because the white-robed man who was passing on the way of slaughter appeared exactly the same as the greatest human expert in the past, Mo Tianyun. They were basically the same person. The white tiger became stunned as well. His eyes became fixed on the man's face as disbelief flooded his own. The white-robed man did not seem to hear everyone's cries. Although he faced everyone, his eyes were fixed on the vast stars. He began to talk once again. The way of slaughter contains two states. Only when you comprehend the states of life and death can you reach completion in the way of slaughter. I have only left the state of death here. I will pass on the state of life to you in the saints' world if you comprehend it. With that, the white-robed man slowly vanished, and everyone experienced an invisible force that pushed them out of the tremendous sea of stars. Although they felt like they had spent a very long time in the sea of stars, only a few seconds had passed in the outside world. Xiaoling's painful sobs were still present, but no one was in the mood to pay any attention to her anymore. All of their expressions were varied. They all thought about the white-robed man's face, which had only been revealed at the end. The person passing on the way is actually Mo Tianyun, but this fur clearly was shed by the winged tiger god. According to the ancient records, the winged tiger god left behind this beast fur after sealing up Ergens. It was the key to removing his seal. Then the beast fur was split into another 18 pieces before being divided among the 100 races, humans, and the magical beasts. How could Mo Tianyun leave behind his legacy in this beast fur? And why does this legacy require all 18 beast furs to be fused together to unlock? Houston furrowed his brows. He was completely puzzled. They were more willing to believe the white-robed man was the winged tiger god than Mo Tianyun. There would be a lot of unexplainable matters if it really was Mo Tianyun. Chapter 1584, A Terrifying Conclusion. Back when the winged tiger god shed his 18 pieces of beast fur, did he do that because he had already sensed Mo Tianyun's intentions and knew that Mo Tianyun wanted to leave his intentions in the beast fur? Was it because Mo Tianyun's strength had already surpassed the winged tiger god, or was the winged tiger god unable to stop Mo Tianyun and divided it into 18 pieces to stop Mo Tianyun from using its fur? Gue Hai Dao guessed. Yang Lai thought about it before gently shaking his head. If the winged tiger god wanted to stop Mo Tianyun from using his fur to leave behind a legacy, he could have taken a piece of the fur with him or hidden it deep in outer space after he had divided it into 18 pieces. There would have been no need for him to leave them all here. Idao, your explanation doesn't work. Back then, both Mo Tianyun and the winged tiger god gave me an unfathomable feeling. However, after Mo Tianyun discovered the tunnel to the world of Forsaken Saints, he ventured into that world all by himself and slaughtered all the Origin Realm experts there. He also placed a powerful seal that lasted 1,000,000 years that even reciprocity experts could not smash through. If the Spirit King's battle prowess had not reached godhood, the seal would probably still remain right now. All of this indicates Mo Tianyun's power. His strength might have even exceeded the winged tiger god's strength, so we naturally can't eliminate the possibility that Mo Tianyun left behind his legacy on the beast fur without the winged tiger god knowing, said the sea goddess. As someone who originated from the same era as Mo Tianyun and the winged tiger god, she knew about a lot of things that had happened in the past. No one else present knew about these matters since they all came from different eras, apart from Xiaoling. Even Xiaoling did not know about many matters that happened during the ancient times since she had yet to develop self-awareness. Some matters had happened before she existed. Everyone was filled with confusion. Only the white tiger remained silent, but he was not as calm as he seemed on the surface. He was young, but he had experienced many things with Jian Chen across the years, so he was very mature. After discovering the secret within the beast fur, he established an unbelievable connection. This connection shocked him, astounded him, and filled him with even more disbelief. He did not care when Mo Tianyun's legacy had appeared in the fur of a sacred feathered tiger emperor. All he thought about was how Mo Tianyun had grasped the way of slaughter. This was also the way of slaughter grasped by the sacred feathered tiger emperor. Senior, in the ancient times, who appeared first? Was it the beast god or Mo Tianyun? And do you know if there are any records of their growth? The white tiger was interested in the matter and suddenly asked the sea goddess. The sea goddess was silent. She seemed to be recalling the distant past. The era was just too long ago, 1,000,000 years in fact. She said, in the ancient times, the Tian Yuan continent was originally occupied by magical beasts and humans. After the appearance of the winged tiger god, it led all the magical beasts to attack the 100 races and took over the current beast god continent. The 100 races failed to retake their homeland after many attacks, so they attacked the Tian Yuan continent. They wanted to take over the territory of the Tian Yuan continent. The strongest humans in that era were only peak saint emperors, and no one had surpassed Saint Emperor. Even the protector clans were beaten and suffered heavy losses. When the 100 races were about to take over the Tianyuan continent, Mo Tianyun appeared. He possessed strength beyond Saint Emperor as soon as he appeared and defeated Ergens, driving the 100 races from the Tianyuan continent. He protected the humans. Mo Tianyun appeared out of nowhere. There was no information regarding him on the Tianyuan continent before his appearance. As time went on, many people recognized Mo Tianyun as some great expert who had hid himself from public view and had never revealed himself. A strange light flickered through the sea goddess' eyes. She seemed to have found an interesting connection and continued, as for the winged tiger god, he appeared before Mo Tianyun, but there is no information regarding him on the Tianyuan continent either. He appeared just like Mo Tianyun, out of nowhere. He possessed strength beyond Saint Emperor as soon as he appeared too. A gleam of light flickered through Yang Lai, Feng Xiaotian, Gui Haidao, Tian Jian, and Houston's eyes. At that moment, they thought of something unbelievable. I'm thinking that both Mo Tianyun and the winged tiger god aren't people from this world. They're the same as you three. They came down from above and have an extremely close relationship. They basically appeared and disappeared at the same time. I suspect and have deduced from the various tracks that they have left behind that they are actually the same person, the sea goddess sternly said. When she uttered her last sentence, it was like a bolt from the blue hit everyone. They were all stunned. Even though everyone had thought of something similar, they still felt very shocked, and the sea goddess mentioned her conclusion, which had overthrown 1,000,000 years of understanding. Sob, how can my master be that tiger? My master's a human. He's a human. Xiaoling wiped away her tears as she stressed her point. She refused to accept such a conclusion. However, no one was in the mood to pay any attention to her. They all sank into their thoughts. After quite a long while, Tian Jian sighed while sitting on the jade-white seat. He said, I've checked ancient records in the past as well. Although they don't go into a whole lot of detail regarding the matters from that era, I've gained a rough understanding regarding it. It said that the city lord and the winged tiger god never met, and that the agreement between the Tianyuan continent and the beast god continent, which stated that they would never trespass in each other's territory, was never decided in public. Instead, it was told to the magical beasts by the winged tiger god and the humans by Mo Tianyun. This matter was influencing everyone's thoughts. If they announced the secret that Mo Tianyun and the winged tiger god might be the same person, probably no one in the world would believe them. However, none of them planned to announce their conclusions. They had only managed to deduce that Mo Tianyun and the winged tiger god might be the same person through some hints that had been left behind. As long as their conclusions had not been proven, they would remain as a deduction. Let's comprehend Mo Tianyun's way of slaughter together. If we can comprehend it, we'll open the door to godhood earlier. Houston stared at the floating beast fur and spoke with some mixed feelings. Sob, this is my master's way. My master said in the past that since I am a natural spirit, I have to find my own way to comprehend, and before I completely comprehend the way I find, it's best for me to not comprehend any other way. Otherwise, it will suppress the way I should comprehend. Brother Xiao Jin can't comprehend it either. Xiao Ling choked back her tears. Her face was filled with sorrow and sadness. Seeing her past master and the beast fur had triggered the longing for her master she had hidden within her heart. The sea goddess' face sank. She gently sighed and said with some regret, I can't comprehend Mo Tianyun's way of slaughter either, because I'm the same as Xiao Jin and Xiao Ling. I'm also a natural spirit. I was born in the vast ocean. When I was still forming, tribulation lightning descended and I failed the tribulation. I had almost dispersed, but I did not die. I managed to survive, fortunately, but I'm only half a spirit now. I'm no longer a complete natural spirit. Everyone could not help but glance at the sea goddess. None of them had thought that the sea goddess was the same as Xiao Jin and Xiao Ling, a natural spirit given birth to by the world. Chapter 1585, Ouyang Yangwen breaks through the blood-red sun hung in the sky of the world of forsaken saints. It shone with a demonic red light, and the entire world seemed like it was dyed with blood. Everything in the world was scarlet, making it look corrupted. At the center of the world, on top of the world mountains, several receival experts entered the tunnel to the other world with an elder on. The other end of the tunnel was blocked by the Supreme Divine Hall of Mercenary City, and these receival experts were going to make the Divine Hall waste its power faster. A majestic Divine Hall stood several million kilometers east of the world mountains. It silently stood like an ancient, slumbering beast, giving off a suffocating pressure. It was exalted and filled with a dignified presence, standing in the world as if it was inviolable. The Divine Hall was the Sacred Spirit Hall, the place that held the most authority in the world of forsaken saints. If the entire world of forsaken saints was described as an empire, the Sacred Spirit Hall would be the capital city or the imperial palace. The Sacred Spirit Hall possessed 3 floors. The first floor was where ceremonies were held, while the second floor was where the protector and elders stayed to cultivate. The second floor was divided into an exterior component and an interior component. The third floor was the most special. Only spirit kings could enter it, and no elder, including Ouyang Yangwen, had ever set foot on the third floor because there was a restriction at the entrance of the third floor that had existed since ancient times. It did not allow those below reciprocity to step foot on the third floor. According to the rules passed down since the ancient times, people would become spirit kings as long as they reached reciprocity. In the very depths of the third floor was a 300-meter-tall statue. Both eyes of the statue had been destroyed, and at the corners of the eyes, there was clear slashes caused by a sword. It was possible to see a gate, which shone with rainbow light, within the statue's head through the eyes. The scenery within the gate seemed divine. It was a beautiful world filled with origin energy. The world was not very big. It was only a few hundred square kilometers, not even as large as some cities. However, a figure sat in the center of that beautiful world with strands of powerful origin energy filling his surroundings. Strands of extremely sharp sword chi would appear within the origin energy from time to time. The strands were also formed from origin energy, but they became even more powerful after becoming sword chi. The figure was the Spirit King. Over the past 3 years, he had remained cultivating in that divine world. He had not broken through after 3 years and remained at mid-reciprocity, but he was extremely close to late reciprocity. Jian Chen, you possessed the strength of a receival expert the first time I saw you. When I saw you a second time, you could beat Xiongzhong. The next time will be when we truly meet each other. I hope you can give me the same surprise the next time I see you. As the Spirit King cultivated, he was eager to fight Jian Chen the next time they met because Jian Chen was the only other person he knew that had comprehended the way of the sword. The Spirit King did not attack the Supreme Divine Hall because he knew that he could not quickly smash through the Divine Hall. He would much rather spend his time cultivating so that he could smash through the Divine Hall in a single stroke. He would rather not waste his origin energy pointlessly nor enter a battle of attrition with the people of the other world. At the same time, Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen had also entered seclusion in the floor below. Ouyang Yangwen had remained at late returnance for several thousand years now, so after 3 years of cultivation, his strength surged toward the peak late returnance. He was only a single step away from reciprocity. However, the difference between reciprocity and returnance was an entire cultivation realm. Ouyang Yangwen needed to bide his time before erupting in order to break through, so he had remained stuck during the past 3 years and had not reached reciprocity yet. Only until after another 6 years did a pulse of energy suddenly surge from where Ouyang Yangwen was cultivating. The tremendous presence that came with the pulse enveloped the entire second floor in a single moment, causing a storm of energy. The energy only rampaged through the second floor. It did not reach the first or third floor, so the Spirit King felt nothing. The other cultivating protectors and elders were all roused. Under the tremendous presence, all of them felt like they were suffocating. They seemed to feel a tremendous pressure weighing down on their organs while a huge mountain rested on their backs. They felt their bodies become heavy and found moving very difficult. It's Elder Ouyang. Elder Ouyang has broken through. A returnance elder cried out. His voice was filled with joy. No, you shouldn't call him Elder Ouyang. He's a spirit king. He's Spirit King Ouyang. Another returnance expert corrected. He too was filled with joy. They both were on Ouyang Yangwen's side, so they were obviously extremely exhilarated. However, the elders on Xiongzhong's side all became very stern. Xiongzhong was also roused from his cultivation. He stared at the spot where Ouyang Yangwen cultivated through the heavy stone door. His eyes were completely stern. He tightened his fists but said nothing. He continued cultivating. Although Xiongzhong was weaker than Ouyang Yangwen, he was at late returnance as well. Even if he was weaker, there was a limit. Xiongzhong had not broken through after 9 years of cultivation, but he had also reached the peak of late returnance and was only a step away from reciprocity. Now that Ouyang Yangwen had pulled ahead, he needed to reach reciprocity in the shortest amount of time possible. Congratulations, Elder Ouyang, for successfully reaching reciprocity. From today on, our sacred spirit hall possesses a second spirit king. The elders on Ouyang Yangwen's side, along with a few protectors, went up to him to congratulate him. Ouyang Yangwen's white robes drifted in the air as he slowly walked out from the place where he cultivated. His feminine face was filled with uncontainable joy. However, he immediately frowned when he heard how the elders referred to him. He said, "Keep calling me Elder Ouyang in the future. I'll continue as an elder and not a spirit king." As soon as he thought about the current spirit king's battle prowess, which was akin to a godhood expert, he could not help but shiver. If the current spirit king had just been a regular spirit king, Ouyang Yangwen would have been extremely willing to become a second spirit king, even if the current spirit king was at late reciprocity, but even after reaching reciprocity, Ouyang Yangwen probably still had to follow the current spirit king's word. He could become a spirit king now, but he did not dare to accept the title. Ouyang Yangwen was extremely arrogant when it came to his strength, but he only showed this arrogance to the protectors and elders of the world of Forsaken Saints. Even if he was as great as a dragon, he needed to remain curled up while in the presence of the current spirit king. The protectors and elders were all stunned by what Ouyang Yangwen said. They looked at each other before promising that they would keep calling him elder. They obviously understood why Ouyang Yangwen wanted them to call him an elder. The current spirit king was just too powerful. Even with the birth of a new reciprocity expert, he dared not to stand on equal ground with the current spirit king. This was the deterrent power of the current spirit king. Although the spirit king had never forced them to do anything, they knew that he was definitely not a benevolent person, so not only did the current spirit king deter the protectors and elders from stepping out of line, but he also filled them with a deep fear and some respect. What's the situation of the other world? Has the divine hall that blocked the entrance been pushed away? Ouyang Yangwen firmly inquired, demanding an answer. Elder Ouyang, we've never stopped attacking the divine hall over the past 9 years. However, our attacks have only been hard but meaningless work. We've made no progress and the tunnel remains blocked, answered an elder. His tone was much different from before. Ouyang Yangwen had rejected the title as the second spirit king because of his fear of the first spirit king, but Ouyang Yangwen already possessed a status akin to the current spirit king among the hearts of all the other origin realm experts. Ouyang Yangwen's face immediately became cold. He said with a feminine voice, 9 years and you still can't get through a single divine hall. You're all trash. With that, Ouyang Yangwen left with a sweep of his sleeves. The protectors and elders on the second floor all revealed ugly expressions after Ouyang Yangwen departed. Although Ouyang Yangwen was more powerful than them, they were still origin realm experts, yet Ouyang Yangwen did not respect them by labeling them trash. They all could not accept that. Even the current spirit king had never insulted them like that after all these years. Elder Ouyang really is haughty. He's only just broken through to reciprocity, yet he already looks down on us. Qing Jingyun coldly snorted. Without long, Elder Xiong will reach reciprocity, Gongxi Ming said with a deep voice. He was very displeased by Ouyang Yangwen. He and Qing Jingyun belonged to Xiongzhong's side after all. The other protectors all felt indignant, but they dared not express their unhappiness publicly like Gongxi Ming and Qing Jingyun. They just buried their feelings deep in their hearts. A figure shot toward the peak of the World Mountains with lightning-like speed. Not only were the World Mountains the greatest mountain range in the world of Forsaken Saints, bearing the name of heaven-shouldering pillars, but they were also the most dangerous place in the world. Even receival experts needed to be careful when ascending the mountains. However, the figure shot toward the highest peak without any fear at all. Bolts of lightning shot down while terrifying cracks in space appeared, but they were unable to slow the figure down at all. They were either dodged with great agility or eliminated by a resplendent and powerful light from his sword. To no surprise, this person was Ouyang Yangwen. Ouyang Yangwen had always been a haughty person and always demanded respect. However, after the two setbacks on the Tianyuan continent, he was driven back to the world of Forsaken Saints as a horrible mess. If the Tianyuan continent had possessed strength far greater than what he could deal with, he would not have cared so much, but no one on the Tianyuan continent possessed power that caught his attention. But even with those circumstances, the Tianyuan continent had managed to repel the many protectors and elders of his world. Ouyang Yangwen was unable to accept this fact, so he had already begun to hate the people from the foreign world. He was tempted to wipe them all out just to vent his anger. As a result, Ouyang Yangwen rushed over as soon as he had broken through. I'd like to see how much longer you can last. Ouyang Yangwen's face was extremely cold as he stood at the entrance of the tunnel. Heavy killing intent flickered in his eyes. He didn't try to contain it as he stepped into the tunnel without any hesitation. Chapter 1586, Major Achievement of Sword Origin. Ouyang Yangwen made his way through the tunnel on foot. His pace was not hurried, but he would cross a very large distance with each step. As he advanced, his presence rapidly climbed while the sword in his hand erupted with powerful sword qi. He caused the tunnel to gently tremble. During those 9 years, the tunnel had continued to consolidate. It was so tough that it could easily support reciprocity experts. Even if reciprocity experts began fighting in it, they find it difficult to collapse. Ouyang Yangwen's presence became more and more powerful, basically approaching his limit. This was the first time he had displayed his full power after reaching reciprocity. Several Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints were attacking the Divine Hall at the end of the tunnel. When they sensed the tremendous surging presence behind them, they immediately stopped and looked back to see Ouyang Yangwen approaching them. Their eyes narrowed while they bowed to Ouyang Yangwen with clasped hands. All of you leave. Leave this to me. Ouyang Yangwen coldly commanded them away. His face was extremely sunken. With a swing of his sword, he immediately produced a streak of resplendent light that was 300 meters long. It shot out and smashed into the Divine Hall heavily with a devastating might. With a great boom, the light struck the Divine Hall. Powerful pulses of energy were created and wreaked havoc in the tunnel. They caused the entire tunnel to vibrate and let out a rumble. However, the Divine Hall was so tough that even the Spirit King, who was as powerful as a godhood expert, could only shake the Divine Hall when it was full of energy. Ouyang Yangwen had reached reciprocity, but a huge chasm in strength still remained between him and the Spirit King. His disruptive attack did not even shake the Divine Hall even though it produced a deafening boom. I'd like to see just how much longer you can last, Ouyang Yangwen said coldly. He did not become downhearted due to his attack earlier. He stood in the tunnel all by himself as he launched a barrage of attacks. He struck out with his full power each time, as if he was venting all his hatred for the Tianyuan continent onto the Divine Hall before him. In the room where all the Origin Realm experts gathered within the Supreme Divine Hall, a snow-white beast fur hovered in the air. Over the past few years, they attempted to comprehend the way of slaughter left behind by Mo Tianyun while standing guard. However, no one had managed to succeed yet. No one was comprehending the way of slaughter at this moment. The Supreme Divine Hall suddenly received an attack several times more powerful than before. The attack was not as impressive as the Spirit King's attack from before, but it made everyone in the room stern. Has the foreign world launched another large-scale invasion? They must have gathered all their origin realm experts to launch such a powerful attack. If they keep attacking with such power, the time we have left will greatly shorten, Gui Haidao said with a heavy heart. Their origin energy was being consumed at a rate several times faster than before. The tunnel is only so large. It can't hold too many people and would not allow them to attack at the same time. Maybe someone from the foreign world has reached reciprocity, said Feng Xiaotian. Everyone became silent and then became grim. After every 3 or 4 years, we all have to eat a mortal energy fruit to recover origin energy. Now that the attacks have become more powerful, we'll consume the mortal energy fruit at a greater rate as well. If this continues, we won't be able to last very long with our remaining fruit. We can only place all our hopes on Jian Chen now. Let's hope that Jian Chen will return before the front lines give way, or our world will probably face a mass extinction, said Houston. How can Jian Chen raise his strength to the level where he no longer needs to fear the Spirit King in such a short amount of time? Tian Jian questioned. He was extremely worried. He knew that Jian Chen was a great prodigy and that his cultivation rate was unprecedented, but the difference between the origin realm and godhood was just far too massive. Could he make it in such a short amount of time? Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er dressed themselves and left the deep ditch created by the Yinyang Saint Rock. Shangguan Mu'er entered her earthen hut to refine the energy within her while Jian Chen sat down somewhere 100 kilometers away. They began to refine the energy they had just absorbed. Throughout the past few years, Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er had continuously absorbed the energy from the rock through a dual cultivation method and then refined the energy in their bodies. They patiently repeated this cycle because they knew that the Tianyuan continent would not last much longer, so they always devoted all their efforts to increasing their strengths. They never let down their guard. A few days later, Jian Chen roused. He had completely refined the energy he had absorbed and transformed it into a portion of chaotic force. The chaotic Niden in his dantian was much larger than before. Shangguan Mu'er's speed at refining the energy had increased after reaching returnance, but she was still nowhere near as fast as Jian Chen. She remained in seclusion. I wonder how much time has passed on the Tianyuan continent and what the situation is like now. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes and gazed at the hazy, gray sky in a daze. There was some worry on his face. However, he knew that he could not return yet since he probably would not be able to change anything with his current strength. Everyone would be better off if he devoted more time to cultivation and powering up as quickly as possible. He could only stop the foreign world once he was strong enough. Jian Chen gently sighed and dismissed his thoughts. He continued his cultivation. He sent his consciousness into the twin swords while his mind sank into the comprehension of the way of the sword. Gradually, he entered a state of meditation. As he began to meditate, a layer of white light gradually appeared in his surroundings, covering his entire body. He gave off an extremely sharp sword intent, which permeated an area several dozen kilometers wide. The air and all the invisible energy in the region would freeze before sharpening as well, turning into invisible sword chi, as if they had been infected by the sword intent. The region around him became filled with sword chi, becoming a world of sword intent. Jian Chen's comprehension of the way of the sword had reached the peak of partial achievement of sword origin. He was about to advance to major achievement. Every time he comprehended the way of the sword, he would give off a sword intent, which would envelope a region that was several dozen kilometers wide. In order to avoid disturbing Shangguan Mu'er, he chose to cultivate 100 kilometers away. However, the sword chi around Jian Chen became several times more powerful all of a sudden while white light around him exploded as well. It turned into a pillar that extended into the sky, shining with a resplendent light and illuminating the entire world. A supreme sword chi swept out in all directions with Jian Chen at the center. It ripped through space and destroyed the ground, riddling the surrounding several dozen kilometers with spatial cracks. The gray ground rapidly sank as well. The soil did not compress but instead disappeared, turning into nothing before the supreme sword chi as if it had evaporated. In just a few seconds, soil 9 meters deep vanished from a radius of several dozen kilometers. The only part that remained was a circle 3 meters wide, where Jian Chen was sitting. Jian Chen's body was enveloped by the pillar of bright light, completely obscuring his body. However, the pillar of light rapidly changed. In the end, it formed a sword, which stood under the heavens. The illusory sword was so powerful that it devastated the surroundings. At the same time, Jian Chen's soul strengthened at an unbelievable rate. His comprehension of the way of the sword had finally reached major achievement, and with it came benefits to his soul. Jian Chen felt his soul rapidly swell, developing like a child to an adult. He could feel his soul strengthen with every passing moment, tearing through returnance and heading to reciprocity. His soul did not stop there. After reaching reciprocity, his soul continued to strengthen as if it would never stop. It broke through early reciprocity and mid-reciprocity before stopping at late reciprocity. Jian Chen could clearly sense that his soul was far more powerful than before. He had never experienced anything like that. If he could just advance a little further, his soul would surpass the origin realm and reach godhood. Jian Chen's strength had not reached the Spirit King's level after 9 years of cultivation, but there had still been a significant increase. He had reached the 6th layer of the chaotic body, and his comprehension of the way of the sword had progressed from partial achievement to major achievement. Even his soul had reached late reciprocity. Jian Chen was able to fight late returnance experts when he was at the 5th layer of the chaotic body, and while his comprehension of the way of the sword was at partial achievement. Now, he could fight reciprocity experts. The white light around Jian Chen gradually faded and the huge sword condensed out of sword chi vanished. Jian Chen reappeared. Jian Chen opened his eyes and looked around at the ground that had sunk by 9 meters. His face did not change at all. He took a step and instantly vanished, reappearing over 10 kilometers away. Jian Chen had crossed 100 kilometers with a few steps. Before him, the alluring Shangguan Mu'er stood with her beautiful back straightened. She had waited for quite some time now. Meanwhile, her strength had reached late returnance as well. You've broken through. Shangguan Mu'er looked at Jian Chen warmly with her enchanting eyes. Her voice was filled with charm, enough to cause people to go numb. Jian Chen nodded. It's a small breakthrough, but I'm still an extremely great distance away from being able to fight the Spirit King. However, my chaotic body has reached the peak of the 6th layer, so I should be able to reach the 7th layer by absorbing energy from the rock one more time. The 1st to 6th layers of the chaotic body are all just a part of minor achievement. Once I reach the 7th layer, I'll progress to partial achievement of the chaotic body, and if I do want to move on, I'll need to comprehend ways. They are the key to the 6th layer, so there's an unimaginably great difference between the 6th and 7th layer. I wonder what my strength will reach once I do break through and whether or not it will be enough to take on the Spirit King. Shangguan Mu'er smiled when. If that's the case, let's get cultivating. I've also reached late returnance and am going to break through to reciprocity soon. Chapter 1587. The 7th layer of the chaotic body. Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er arrived before the Yinyang Saint Rock once again and worked together to absorb its energy. Both their cultivations had arrived at the peak of the realm they were in and were about to progress to the next, so the energy they absorbed this time would assist them in getting through the bottleneck. Several days later, Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er reached the limit of what they could absorb, so they left together. They underwent a final refinement, turning the energy they had just absorbed into their own. Just like before, Jian Chen chose to cultivate 100 kilometers away. He sat on the dreary ground, and as his eyes slowly closed, the chaotic force within him began to rapidly flow. While he used his cultivation method, the energy he had just absorbed rapidly melded into the chaotic force, causing the chaotic force in his dantian to become full. When Jian Chen refined all the energy into chaotic force, his fist-sized chaotic Niden finally passed its limits and loudly burst open. The chaotic force hidden within immediately flowed out like a flood, surging forth and filling every inch of his body in a single moment. With just a short instance, Jian Chen's body filled as the solid chaotic Niden in his dantian turned into surging chaotic force. Jian Chen violently trembled. His face became extremely pale. Beads of sweat covered his forehead while his face revealed his agony. His body also began to swell like a balloon, constantly enlarging. He turned into a 9-meter-tall giant in just a few seconds. Every time a breakthrough was made with the chaotic body, the owner would have to endure torturous pain. This time was no exception. At the same time, Jian Chen was making a huge leap by going from the 6th layer to the 7th layer. The increase in strength could not compare to the breakthrough he made from the 5th layer because the 7th layer was equivalent to reaching partial achievement of the chaotic body. The 7th layer was unlike the first 6 layers, which all belonged to minor achievement. As a result, the pain Jian Chen experienced this time was far more potent than any other past breakthrough. Jian Chen trembled more and more severely. His teeth began to creak. He was clenching them so hard. His hands had already been balled into fists. The pain had almost made him faint, even blurring his consciousness. Jian Chen knew that this was an extremely important moment, so he viciously bit down on the tip of his tongue, biting off a third. He felt a heart-wrenching pain, but he did not continue to faint and instead slowly regained consciousness. He immediately devoted himself to using his cultivation method. Tremendous chaotic force rampaged through Jian Chen's body like wild horses. They violently rammed into every part of him, destroying all his organs, cracking his meridians, and shattering his bones. Even his flesh suffered great wounds from the rampaging of the chaotic force. Blood poured from his pores, making it seem like his flesh was made from blood. It was a vicious sight. Jian Chen practiced the cultivation method of the chaotic body, so he devoted himself to healing. He did not use the origin energy of Radiant Saint Force. He only relied on the chaotic body's self-recovery ability. Jian Chen's chaotic body recovered rapidly, but his body had to be destroyed before he could heal again. This process would repeat time and time again. His chaotic body desperately struggled between constant destruction and recovery, but his body would become much stronger each time he healed. It did not just modify his flesh but his organs, meridians and all of his bones as well. As Jian Chen's body gradually strengthened, the pain he was withstanding slowly lessened. The chaotic force that was rampaging through his body slowly began to compress as well, becoming even more powerful. Every strand of chaotic force he managed to compress lessened the violence of the chaotic force in his body. As the chaotic force within Jian Chen was compressed, his body slowly returned to its original size as well. Jian Chen could clearly feel his chaotic force strengthen and his powers increase. He was getting closer and closer to the 7th layer of the chaotic body. But it was also at this time that Jian Chen sensed an obstructive force suddenly appear. The moment it appeared, the chaotic force within him stopped growing. He came to a halt on his advance to the 7th layer. Progressing from the 6th to the 7th layer of the chaotic body requires the comprehension of ways. I've already comprehended a way and have made quite some progress with it. Today, I will use my way of the sword as my key and open a gate to the 7th layer, Jian Chen thought with determination. He fused his consciousness with the way of the sword and used his comprehension of it to charge through any obstructions in an unstoppable fashion. Master, we're going to purge your comprehensions of the mysteries of the world on the Tianyuan continent so that you can focus on the way of the sword and progress to the 7th layer of the chaotic body. If your comprehensions of the mysteries of the world from the Tianyuan continent remain, they will affect your future cultivation. At this moment the voices of the sword spirits rang through Jian Chen's head. Soon after they spoke, Ziying and Qing Suo appeared in his consciousness. They were stern. Master, since we haven't recovered, we aren't able to forcefully purge your comprehensions due to the current strength of your soul. We will require your cooperation and assistance. We can only succeed with your help, said Ziying. Jian Chen did not hesitate to help them. He began to multitask, focusing on breaking through to the 7th layer while cooperating with the sword spirits. he was willing to purge his comprehensions of the mysteries of the world. In the past, Jian Chen's comprehension of the mysteries of the world had been forcefully halted by the sword spirit when he was about to reach the level of a saint king. From then on, Jian Chen knew that a day would come when he would have to give up his comprehensions. This was also why he allowed his comprehensions of the mysteries of the world to remain at the 9th heavenly layer of a saint ruler even though his strength had increased throughout the years, and why he had never gained the ability to rip open a space gate, making travel extremely difficult. He had to get help from others to travel far distances. Only when he forged the twin swords did he manage to solve his problem. Jian Chen almost held blind faith for the sword spirits. He knew that Ziying and Qing Suo were not as simple as just sword spirits. They were also his saviors and his masters. There were many things that they had passed on to him along his path of cultivation, so he did not hesitate at all when the sword spirits wanted to purge his comprehension of the mysteries of the world. With Jian Chen's full support and the sword spirit's guidance, it was obviously not difficult to remove his 9th heavenly layer saint ruler comprehensions from his late reciprocity soul. Very soon, Jian Chen felt like he had forgotten something. His comprehensions had been completely removed. Jian Chen did not feel uncomfortable at all now that the mysteries of the world were gone. Instead, he felt like his soul had never been clearer. He seemed to feel that comprehending the way of the sword would become much easier than before. At the same time, Jian Chen used his way of the sword as a key and carved out a path, finally reaching the 7th layer of the chaotic body. He had formally advanced to the partial achievement of the chaotic body. The fist-sized chaotic Niden had already disappeared from his Niden. It had been replaced by one that was the size of a soybean. Jian Chen's body returned to its original size as well. All the blood that had oozed out of his pores had been reabsorbed and returned to his body. His chaotic body had strengthened once again. Jian Chen felt like he could withstand against the full-powered attacks of a receival expert without dodging or defending. In fact, he felt like even the full-powered attacks of receival experts were unable to harm him at all. Chapter 1588, The 8th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 1, Early Returnance. The increase in strength from the 6th layer to the 7th layer really is huge. I went from the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Emperor, straight past receival, to early returnance. Jian Chen determined his current strength by silently sensing his powers and comparing them to the origin realm experts he had fought in the past. His face was filled with an uncontrollable excitement. The difference in strength between the 6th and 7th layer had completely exceeded anything he had been expecting. At the same time, rarely anyone would still be his opponent among returnants due to his chaotic body, even though he had just reached early returnance. His chaotic body coupled with the twin swords and his comprehension of the way of the sword meant his battle prowess was even greater. Aside from those aspects, he had also been comprehending various but powerful sword techniques from the sword spirits, so he had grasped a few new sword techniques that could display an even greater power. With my current strength, I can kill reciprocity experts if I go at full throttle. Even when I come across late reciprocity experts, I'll be able to take them on, at the very least, even though I'm not sure I will be able to emerge victorious, because I have an advantage with the twin swords and the way of the sword. It's just that my advantages are no longer as impressive when dealing with the Spirit King. He also possesses a great sword and also comprehends the way of the sword. Not to mention the fact that his comprehension is no worse than mine, meaning he also possesses the power to challenge those greater than him. I wonder if the Spirit Kings made any improvement during the years I have spent cultivating. If I exhaust all my strength, I'll only be able to fight regular reciprocity experts. The Spirit King is not a regular reciprocity expert, however. He already possessed the battle prowess of someone at godhood several years ago. I still can't defeat him even with my chaotic body at the 7th layer. I probably have to reach the 8th layer to be able to hold my ground against him, Jian Chen thought. Ouyang Yangwen was no longer a threat in his eyes now. He no longer feared the group of origin realm experts from the foreign world. His only problem was the Spirit King. The Spirit King was just too powerful. He could take on godhood experts while at reciprocity, making him a great genius. His talent was not any worse than Jian Chen's talent, and thus, the Spirit King was Jian Chen's final opponent. If he could defeat the Spirit King, then the threat of the foreign world would be resolved, but if he could not, the Tian Yuan continent would remain doomed. I have to continue cultivating. I need to reach the 8th layer of the chaotic body. Jian Chen gritted his teeth. Determination poured from his eyes as he took a step and instantly took off into the distance. Very soon, Jian Chen arrived before the Yinyang Saint Rock again. He stared at the rock, which glowed with a black and a white light, and immediately frowned. The energy within the rock had been absorbed by him, Shangguan Mu'er, and the evil energy, so it had shrunk in size. There was not much energy left at all. The remaining energy in the Yinyang Saint Rock is no longer enough for me to reach the 8th layer, Jian Chen thought. Originally, he could have reached the 8th layer or even the 9th if he completely absorbed the rock according to the Sword Spirit's estimations, but the evil power had been competing with him for years, so there was not enough energy to reach the 8th layer in the end. It was also at this time that a tremendous pressure appeared from afar. It made the space around him violently tremble and almost shatter. The influence of the rock on the world had rapidly declined since its energy had been siphoned away, so the world conjured by the rock had become fragile now. Jian Chen turned to face the direction the pressure was coming from, and he could not help but smile faintly. His gaze softened at that moment as well. Shangguan Mu'er had broken through the returnance realm and formally reached reciprocity. Without a single doubt, Shangguan Mu'er was the strongest expert among the 4 races if Jian Chen was not in the picture. She was the greatest expert among all 4 races in terms of cultivation and battle prowess because she was the only one who had reached reciprocity. Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er continued to absorb the energy from the rock to cultivate for another 9 years. The energy within the rock had finally begun to run dry, and only then did Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er stop. 18 years had passed since Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er had come to this world. After 18 years, Jian Chen's chaotic body reached the 7th layer and was close to the peak. After reaching reciprocity, Shangguan Mu'er's cultivation slowed as well. She had only managed to reach the peak of mid-reciprocity during the following 9 years, now only an inch away from late returnance. We can't absorb the rock anymore. If the rock vanishes, then the evil power hidden within will break free as well. Leaving the rock allows it to function as a seal, keeping the evil power trapped in it, Jian Chen sternly said while standing before the rock and glaring at the red light in it. Over the past 18 years, the evil power had always been strengthening, without stopping for a single moment. Although their power had drastically increased, Jian Chen was not completely confident he could deal with the evil power. This was because they could not help but feel chills when they saw the evil power even with their current strength. They were very fearful of it. Shangguan Mu'er also stared at the evil power sternly. She said, once it absorbs all the remaining energy, it will still break free. The remaining rock won't be able to keep it trapped for long. I know it'll break free soon, but I think there will be enough time. I need to raise my chaotic body to the 8th layer as soon as possible and then return to the Tian Yuan continent to deal with the foreign threat. Otherwise, we'll not have a chance of victory even with our increased strength, especially if we get caught in a pincer attack between the evil power and the foreign world, and I have a feeling that the evil power will bring a disaster countless times more severe than the foreign world, Jian Chen said with a heavy voice. His face was grim as the light in his eyes flickered. Shangguan Mu'er looked at Jian Chen. Your chaotic body requires an extremely tremendous amount of energy. Now that we can't absorb energy from the rock and that violet cloud peaches can only be consumed once a century, what do you plan on using to reach the 8th layer? I still have quite a variety of immortal tier heavenly resources that I brought back from the Xianhuang microcosm. These heavenly resources will be the most effective when they have been refined into pills, and if I consume them directly, their effects will be greatly reduced, and I might even explode from the violet energy, but they're the only hope for me to reach the 8th layer under the current situation. Jian Chen replied in a firm voice. With a wave of his hand, several heavenly resources from the Xianhuang microcosm appeared in his hand. Jian Chen, can you withstand the violet energy with the current toughness of your body? Shangguan Mu'er was very worried. I obviously would not have been so confident if my chaotic body remained at the 5th or 6th layer, but now that I've reached the 7th layer, I believe that I can withstand the violet energy from the heavenly resources with my current toughness. Moreover, these heavenly resources aren't of particularly high grades, Jian Chen said confidently. He refused to believe that his chaotic body, at the 7th layer, was unable to withstand the violent energy from some heavenly resources that were not of particularly high grades. Chapter 1589, The 8th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 2, Then you must be careful. If you can't withstand the violent energy, don't force yourself. Although we still can't beat the Spirit King with our current strength, we should be able to keep him busy if we work together, Shangguan Mu'er said. Her gentle voice was filled with concern and worry. She knew that Jian Chen would be embarking on a dangerous path to increase his strength. If something went wrong, he would suffer great injuries. In the worst-case scenario, he might even end up blowing up. After all, the energy within the immortal tier heavenly resources was not gentle but extremely violent. The energy within them was completely different than the energy within the violet cloud peaches. Jian Chen left the Yinyang Saint Rock and arrived several hundred kilometers away in a barren region. He let out the Anata Tower and entering it to cultivate. Although he was very confident, he needed to take precautions just in case the immortal tier heavenly resources made him explode. Such an explosion would definitely affect the rock outside, but he was confident that the tower could withstand an explosion that was countless times more powerful. If he exploded, it would not be able to damage the structure at all, even if the tower was still damaged. Shangguan Mu'er followed Jian Chen into the Anata Tower. She felt slightly uneasy as she silently stood guard beside Jian Chen. She focused on watching over him. Jian Chen raised a king ginseng that had been growing for countless years and shoved it into his mouth, wolfing it down. The king ginseng was extremely bitter, numbing his tongue in a single moment and making him lose his sense of taste. However, when the king ginseng reached his stomach, an extremely violent energy immediately exploded within him like gunpowder. It wildly wreaked havoc, and with a shockwave, Jian Chen's organs were shaken up in a moment. They all ended up rupturing. The king ginseng was extremely old. Coupled with the fact that it was of the immortal tier, the energy hidden within was tremendous. It was equivalent to a 3rd or even 4th grade violet cloud peach, but in the immortals world, rarely anyone dared to devour a king ginseng the way Jian Chen just did. A stream of blood flowed from the corner of Jian Chen's lips. He had clearly been injured even though he had not exploded. Jian Chen ignored the wounds. These wounds were insignificant to him. After circulating the chaotic force within him, his wounds rapidly healed while the violent energy was turned into chaotic force, becoming a part of the energy that would make his chaotic Niden grow. Jian Chen took several days to refine the king ginseng. A few days later, Jian Chen silently felt that his chaotic Niden had grown larger and immediately rejoiced inside. Without any hesitation, he grabbed a second immortal tier heavenly resources and ate it in a single gulp, continuing to strengthen himself. My chaotic body is approaching the peak of the 7th layer. If this continues, I'll be able to reach the 8th layer successfully soon. At that time, the difference in strength between me and the Spirit King will become negligible or non-existent, Jian Chen thought inside. He worked even harder to refine the energy from the heavenly resources. As Jian Chen consumed the heavenly resources, his chaotic Niden swelled. A year later, his chaotic Niden had finally reached the peak of the 7th layer. However, it was also at this point in time that Jian Chen could feel that the effects from the heavenly resources were rapidly shrinking. My body's developing a resistance to the heavenly resources after consuming too many of them, so they're becoming less and less effective. Jian Chen understood the disadvantage of consuming a large number of heavenly resources in a short amount of time. He actually began to feel envious of the white tiger. Due to the white tiger's special bloodline, the white tiger possessed a natural advantage and would never develop a resistance, allowing him to consume heavenly resources without limit. But if regular people devoured the heavenly resources like me, they'd suffer even worse after effects even if they can survive the violet energy. They might even damage their foundations and limit their future accomplishments, but since I have the chaotic body, my foundation obviously won't be harmed, Jianchen thought. He had no intentions of stopping even though he was developing a resistance. Instead, he devoured more heavenly resources at a faster pace. This time, he wanted to reach the 8th layer of the chaotic body in a single stroke. He would still attempt this even if it might cause huge problems to his future cultivation, because he urgently required strength right now. After another year and countless heavenly resources, Jianchen's chaotic body finally advanced to the 8th layer. After reaching partial achievement, progressing to each layer required the comprehension of ways for the chaotic body to advance. If his comprehension was insufficient, a tremendous force would obstruct Jianchen, but his comprehension of the way of the sword had already reached the major accomplishment of sword origin, so he obviously encountered no difficulties and advanced to the 8th layer. Jianchen could finally stop chomping down the various heavenly resources after breaking through. The heavenly resources all possessed horrible tastes and he had munched on them for 2 whole years. It was basically a form of torture. If it were not for his desire to become stronger and his great willpower, he probably would have given up long ago. Now, Jianchen was tempted to vomit whenever he smelled a heavenly resource. It would be a very long time until he would be able to eat heavenly resources again. I've finally broken through. Jianchen stood up and looked at his robes, which had been dyed red due to the shattering of his chaotic Niden. He decisively removed a set of new robes from his space ring and changed into them, and along with his new robes, his presence seemed to change suddenly. Jianchen could sense an extremely great energy in his body. The energy was enough to shake the world and make celestial bodies dim. He felt like he could tear through space just by extending a hand, as if space had become fragile. Jianchen, you've reached the 8th layer successfully? Shangguan Muer's voice joyfully came from Jianchen's side. She knew that once Jianchen reached the 8th layer, he would truly possess the power to fend off the Spirit King. Jianchen looked at Shangguan Muer. Over the past 2 years, he had not found cultivation boring because Shangguan Muer had always been by his side. She would play her zither from time to time, quietly cheering him on. I've reached the 8th layer just as I've wished, but I'm suffering from some side effects from ingesting too many heavenly resources. Fortunately, these side effects shouldn't affect my chaotic body much. I just need some time to nullify them. Jianchen faintly smiled. He did not mind speaking about the side effects. These side effects would have been fatal to some people, yet he only needed to spend some time to completely remove them. Since you've broken through, let's hurry back. We have no clue how long we've stayed here, or what the situation is like on the Tianyuan continent, said Shangguan Muer. She was rather eager, dearly concerned about Shangguan Aojin and Hao Wu's safety. Chapter 1590, The Brink of Destruction. Jianchen's face froze when Shangguan Muer mentioned the Tianyuan continent. He could not help but think of Bai Yuntian, Changyangba, Yu, Huang Wan, and everyone else he was familiar with. He had no idea just how long he had stayed in the world created by the Yinyang Saint Rock. They had no idea what the situation on the Tianyuan continent was like, so he immediately began to worry as soon as he thought of the Tianyuan continent. Shangguan Muer has deep ties to the Tianyuan continent, and Jianchen was the same. Though, he had many more ties. Not only were his parents on the continent but many of his close brothers and friends were as well. Let's hurry back then. Jianchen was even more frantic than Shangguan Muer as soon as he thought of the Tianyuan continent. The two of them immediately left the Anata Tower and returned to the Tianyuan continent with the Sword Spirit's assistance. Jianchen did not pay any attention to the rock that was almost completely exhausted. It was basically just a thin shell now, forming a cage around the evil power. Although the evil power constantly absorbed the rock and would be able to break out in the future, it gave Jianchen just enough time to deal with the foreign world. Otherwise, the outcome would be unthinkable if the evil power began to rampage when the world of Forsaken Saints attacked. The Supreme Divine Hall blocking the tunnel on the Tianyuan continent constantly trembled. With each tremor, a deafening boom would ring out from beneath. The sound passed through everything, causing the water within 100 kilometers to tremble and creating huge several 100-meter-tall waves that were just shocking. Not only did the rumbling from beneath the divine hall affect the 4 raging rivers, but it even reached the very depths of the 4 shattered pieces of the continent, spreading across quite a large region. The thick clouds in the sky were forcefully dispersed by the sound waves as well. The Supreme Divine Hall experienced extremely intense attacks and had endured these attacks for several years already. The attacks had never stopped. Originally, the sainthood experts of the 4 races would all be stationed in the Divine Hall for shifts of 10 days, but now that the attacks withstood by the Divine Hall had become more intense, the energy of the Divine Hall was draining faster than ever before. All the sainthood experts from the 4 races gathered in the Divine Hall, including many Heaven Saint Masters among them. The number of Heaven Saint Masters completely outnumbered the sainthood experts by over 10 to 1. Originally, saint rulers were the weakest class supplying energy to the Divine Hall, but now, countless Heaven Saint Masters had appeared in the Divine Hall. This was more than enough to indicate how close the Tian Yuan continent was to the brink of destruction. Boom! At this moment, another great rumble rang out from below the Divine Hall, reverberating around the surroundings. The Divine Hall shook even more violently, having almost been blown away by the powerful energy. Countless Heaven Saint Masters all grunted within the Divine Hall. Their faces paled in a single moment as they trembled. Half of them outright fainted. The saint rulers, saint kings, and saint emperors all revealed grave expressions within the Divine Hall. They gently trembled. With each attack the Divine Hall withstood, a large quantity of energy would be drained from their bodies. Over the past few years, their rate of recovery had been nowhere near their rate of consumption due to the violent attacks. Almost all of them had reached their limits. There were even quite a few saint rulers who had collapsed. They were still alive, but there was not a single strand of energy left in them. At that moment, despair filled the eyes of many. They no longer held any hope for this world. If it were not for the fact that a few Origin Realm sovereigns continued to persevere and that they had to be there, many of them would have chosen to leave and not devote themselves to a pointless struggle. The Origin Realm experts of the 4 races all sat around the jade-white seat. Their faces were pale and all of them were grim. We can't last any longer. All the mortal energy fruits have been consumed, so once our origin energy is depleted, we won't be able to recover. We only have a few hours, at most, before we cave in. We no longer have any chance at turning the situation around, Gue Haidao said with a heavy heart. His pale face was filled with a sense of helplessness and exhaustion. The world of Forsaken Saints actually has 2 people who have reached reciprocity. They're speeding up the depletion of the Divine Hall's energy with 5 other returnance experts. Otherwise, we could have lasted a little longer, Feng Xiaotian gently sighed. In just 2 decades, the world of Forsaken Saints had gained 2 reciprocity experts. No one had ever anticipated this. It was also because of the 2 reciprocity experts that the time they had was shortened. There's only 2 ways to survive right now. The first would be to take this Divine Hall and the people in it away from this world to the Saints' world. The second is to hide the Divine Hall deep in outer space. As the laws of the world are becoming more and more complete, allowing origin energy to slowly reappear, we will be able to grow to a point where we're strong enough to fend off the world of Forsaken Saints as long as we have enough time, Yang Lai also said with a heavy heart. But Big Brother still hasn't returned. If Big Brother suddenly returns after we leave, he'll think that we've been killed by those baddies. I don't want to go, I want to wait for Big Brother to return. Xiao Ling was the first one to disagree with Yang Lai's suggestion of retreating. She insisted on staying while sniffling. My great-grandson has been gone for 2 decades. We don't even know where he is or when he'll return. We're really running out of time. We've used up all of the mortal energy fruits, so we can only remain for a few more hours at most. If we don't leave now, we'll probably all die here. Yang Lai gently sighed. He was completely helpless. They were not the foreign world's opponents when the foreign world did not have a reciprocity expert, let alone now, when the foreign world suddenly gained 2 of them. How were they supposed to deal with a situation like this? We should retreat while we still have the power. The foreign world can't be stopped, so staying is pointless. We can fight our way back once we're powerful enough, Houston added. I do not disagree. Tai Ta also voiced his opinion. Remaining would only result in death. Anything would be possible in the future as long as they survived. But what about Big Brother? Xiao Ling sobbed. She was heartbroken. The sea goddess sighed, I understand Jian Chen. When he didn't hesitate to leave the continent, I could sense his overwhelming confidence. I believe that he has a method to deal with the foreign world since he was still confident when we had almost run out of choices. He will definitely return once he becomes powerful enough. It's just that we can't afford to wait any longer. Our best plan is to hide deep in outer space and wait for Jian Chen's return. Then we can kill our way back. Many people discussed Jian Chen in the exterior region of the Divine Hall. Where is Sovereign Jian Chen right now? We can't last any longer. Why hasn't he returned yet? Does he know that there's no more hope for this world? Has he left all by himself? It's already so late, yet you still plan on relying on Jian Chen. The foreign world has gained 2 reciprocity experts, and coupled with the Spirit King, who's even more powerful, Jian Chen won't be able to change anything even if he was still here. Chapter 1591, Sending the Divine Hall Flying. Who said that Sovereign Jian Chen is unable to turn the situation around? Sovereign Jian Chen's talent is so great that he's an unprecedented genius not just on our Tian Yuan continent but even among the sea race, the magical beasts, and the 100 races. He's surpassed all the people from all races throughout all of history. He's only used a few decades to go from a nameless saint to an origin realm expert. Now that 20 years have passed, I believe that Sovereign Jian Chen will be countless times more powerful than he used to be. That's right. I agree. Sovereign Jian Chen cultivates at a rate unimaginable to us, so we can't judge him like any other person. Sovereign Jian Chen has vanished for 20 years, so he must have been increasing his strength somewhere or searching for a method to eliminate the foreign threat. I believe that Sovereign Jian Chen will no longer fear the Spirit King when he returns. Sovereign Jian Chen is our only hope right now. Not only are we all waiting for him to return, but so are the Origin Realm sovereigns in the inner region. We're all waiting for him to return. Moreover, when Sovereign Jian Chen left, the world began to change. The laws gradually became more complete, and our cultivation has become easier than before. Even strands of origin energy have begun to reappear now. Don't you think this is all caused by Sovereign Jian Chen? Gradually, more and more people expressed their support for Jian Chen. There were not just humans who supported him, members of the sea race, magical beasts and 100 races supported him as well. Even at such a time, there were still many people who believed in Jian Chen, protecting his name wholeheartedly. However, not everyone stood by Jian Chen. There was still a portion of people who had completely lost hope in him. Jian Chen had disappeared for 20 years, so many of them believed that he had fled already. In my opinion, all of you have become blinded by your faith in Jian Chen. You've lost your capability to think rationally. Just think about how strong the Spirit King is. He's an expert no weaker than those at godhood. Sovereign Jian Chen's talent is impressive, he has very great potential, and his cultivation rate is just astonishing, but just look at his age. Even if Sovereign Jian Chen is extraordinary, it's impossible for him to elevate his strength to the point where he can take on a godhood expert in just 2 short decades. Don't you remember how difficult it was for Sovereign Jian Chen to fend off those returnance experts? The person who spoke was a skinny, hook-nosed, old man. Even though he was pale, he showed disdain to the fighters who admired Jian Chen. The old man's strength was impressive as well. Even among Saint Emperors, he was one of the more powerful members. He had already reached the 7th heavenly layer and was a famous expert among the magical beasts. That's right. In 2 short decades, it's impossible for Sovereign Jian Chen to become as powerful as the Spirit King. Maybe he's already moved on to the saint's world after being silent for 20 years, and in regards to whether the changes in the world are related to sovereign Jianchen. I'll just keep my opinion to myself. I just want to ask that among all of you, who believes that the world is changing because of sovereign Jianchen? A middle-aged man nagged. He too made fun of everyone else. The middle-aged was not as powerful as the old man, but he was also a saint emperor and a human. Sounds of people voicing that they did not believe Jianchen was responsible immediately rang through the surroundings. To everyone, Jianchen really was strong and was the greatest human expert, without a doubt, but it was definitely impossible for him to influence the laws of the world. You're all ungrateful. Don't you remember who let you become saint emperors? Yet you slander my brother's name while he's not here. My brother would never abandon us to save his own skin. A high-pitched, furious voice rang out. Bai Lian angrily charged over from afar. Yu, Huang Wan, Xiao Tianyu, De Gufeng, and so on were all present as well. There were several dozen of them and plenty of saint emperors among them. Nubis was with them as well. At that moment, Nubis stared coldly at the people who had disrespected his brother. He smiled viciously. You were all able to become saint emperors because of my brother Jianchen. It's fine if you're ungrateful, yet you just had to slander his name. It's fine if he doesn't return, but if he does, I, the great Nubis, will make a selfish decision and take back the strength he bestowed upon you. The seventh heavenly layer saint emperor stepped forward. He looked at Nubis calmly and said, Nubis, aren't you being a little too arrogant? You're only a sixth heavenly layer saint emperor. There's quite a few people here that can dominate you. Not to mention, what my friend there said is not completely unreasonable. Sovereign Jianchen has vanished for 2 entire decades. This world is only so big. Several saint emperors have worked together to cast a secret technique to scour every inch of the world for Jianchen, yet they found no signs of his. What other explanation is there aside from moving on to the saint? However, before the old man could finish speaking, a small, white hand silently pressed against his head. With a bang, the saint emperor's head loudly exploded. He passed away in that instant since his soul was not able to escape in time. Everyone immediately shivered inside. They all became dead silent. A young boy silently appeared where the old man had stood before. His face possessed a coldness that did not suit his age at all. He coldly glanced over the other people present, warning them. It's the winged tiger god. Many people of the 4 races shivered at the sight of the boy. They became filled with fear. The winged tiger god did not look very old and rarely spoke, but he would not hesitate when he took action at all. At certain times, his decisive decision to kill people made many older people acknowledge their inferiority. At this moment, the white tiger's gaze landed on the experts present. He emotionlessly said, I don't care if the people of the other 3 races slander my brother's name, but I will show no mercy if you are a magical beast. All the magical beasts experienced chills. Those who had taken part in insulting Jianchen became utterly frightened. The winged tiger god has such a powerful killing intent. He's able to kill a 7th heavenly layer saint emperor without any hesitation. There's not many experts like the saint emperor even among the 4 races. The winged tiger god has acted too recklessly. Many people sighed inside, but they did not dare to reveal their thoughts. Ouyang Yangwen and Xiongzhong stood at the front of the tunnel between the 2 worlds. 5 returnance experts stood behind them. They were all rather excited. I can feel that the energy within the divine hall is rapidly declining. After so many years, we've finally wasted away all its energy. We'll be able to enter the other world very soon. Jianchen, I will definitely kill you by my own hands and vent my hatred. Ouyang Yangwen flashed a vicious smile in the tunnel. He was boiling with killing intent. Jianchen is mine. Last time, I was unable to defeat him, so I retreated. That has been the greatest humiliation of my life, so I will personally take Jianchen's life and redeem myself, Xiongzhong said as well. He was ashamed he had retreated. Ouyang Yangwen's face sank slightly, He glanced at Xiongzhong as a cold light flickered through his eyes. He said, Xiongzhong, I can leave Jianchen to you, seeing that you helped me once in the past, but Jianchen's 2 swords belong to me. No. Xiongzhong disagreed. He knew that Jianchen's 2 swords were very powerful. He had just managed to maintain the balance, so if Ouyang Yangwen obtained the 2 swords, he would no longer be Ouyang Yangwen's opponent. Ouyang Yangwen's gaze immediately grew colder. He said, if that's the case, then we'll compete for them when the time comes. All right, we'll compete for them. Xiongzhong agreed with a straightforward response. He showed no indication of losing. He then looked at the elders behind him and cried out, if we continue attacking, it'll probably take another few hours before we drain all their energy. Let's get to the 7 killings formation and pour our power together to attack the Divine Hall. Fair enough. I'm not willing to waste another few hours. The formation may be exhaustive, but it's worth it even if I have to exhaust some origin energy so that I can obtain those 2 swords sooner. Do it. Ouyang Yangwen hesitated slightly before agreeing to Xiongzhong's suggestion. The 7 of them immediately got into position for the formation. They poured their strengths together to launch an attack far more powerful than early reciprocity at the Supreme Divine Hall. The attack was so powerful that it surpassed any attack the Divine Hall had taken in the past 20 years. It was only weaker than the attack from the Spirit King. The attack was the result of 5 returnance experts and 2 reciprocity experts pooling their strengths together. Boom! Under their combined force, they actually launched the Divine Hall high into the air, unblocking the tunnel. Chapter 1592, A Mighty Return. 1. The Supreme Divine Hall, which had been blocking the entrance to the tunnel, was knocked high into the air by Ouyang Yangwen, Xiongzhong, and the elders from the foreign world. At that moment, the tunnel had been moved after 20 years. The deafening boom continued to reverberate through the Supreme Divine Hall, causing the entire hall to violent shake. All the people in the hall realized that the Divine Hall had been blown into the sky. Many people paled at that moment while their minds became completely blank. They sank into despair. Without the protection of the Divine Hall, they were not just going to face a few Origin Realm experts. There would be several dozen Origin Realm experts and countless Saint Emperors. They had no chance at victory since there was such a difference in strength. Let's go out and fight. Even if we die, it is better to die in our homeland. I'll go all out against the people of the foreign world. Isn't it just death? What's there to be scared of? Who hasn't died throughout history? We'll just live a few thousand years less at most, and we'll still survive as a pile of remains. That's completely right. What's there to fear about death? Even if we don't die now, we'll pass away from old age. It's just going to be a little sooner today, so there's nothing to be scared of. Many voices, brimming with heroic spirit, reverberated through the Divine Hall. They were completely carefree, not fearing death. There was no dread at all. The pressing atmosphere in the Divine Hall was gradually dispersed with the voices. Many people were influenced by the heroic spirit, and gradually, the Divine Hall actually started brimming with battle intent. Even though there were people who were afraid, there were also many people who did not fear death. At that moment, many people gathered the courage to fight to the death. They knew that their efforts would be futile, but they did not shy away from the outcome. Ha 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 ha, Jianchen, get your ass out here. I'd like to see how you defeat us now, Jianchen. You will pay for disgracing me 20 years ago with interest today. That has been the greatest stain to my name in my entire life. Not only will I kill you, but I will also kill everyone related to you. Only then will I redeem myself. 2 thunderous voices reverberated from the tunnel. The voices turned into terrifying sound waves that swept out in all directions and continued through everything. The voices caused the water from the rivers to surge and the banks to tremble. Even the vegetation several tens of thousand kilometers away turned to dust from the terrifying sound waves. If it were not for the fact that there were barely any people in the surroundings, just the sound wave would have been able to cause countless casualties. The voices of two reciprocity experts were so powerful that even saint rulers would be injured. Weaker fighters would find their souls shaken to pieces. Two figures gradually appeared at the entrance of the tunnel. They became clearer and clearer as they approaching the Tianyuan continent at a steady rate. They let out a pressure that could shake the world. These two figures were Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen. After 20 years, both of them had reached reciprocity. Strength made them confident. In their eyes, there was no longer anyone on the Tianyuan continent that was worthy of being their opponent. Even Jian Chen was not worthy. They had come looking for Jian Chen to redeem themselves after what had happened 20 years ago and because Jian Chen's swords had caught their eyes. At the same time, countless people charged out of the Supreme Divine Hall with great determination. They charged toward the tunnel, boiling with battle intent, showing no fear of death. Not only were there heaven saint masters, but there were saint rulers, saint kings, and saint emperors as well. These ants want to make a pointless final struggle. Ouyang Yangwen sneered. He used his right hand as a sword and extended it into the air. Immediately, a huge sword chi that was several dozen meters wide surged toward the fighters with terrifying pulses of energy. Mysteries of war, heaven-cleaving blow. At the same time, golden light erupted from the ground. It was like a miniature sun, shining with endless light that illuminated the surroundings. Tai Ta charged out from the group of people with his battle axe. His presence surged as his great battle intent fused with his golden axe. He cleaved his axe down. His axe collided with Ouyang Yangwen's sword chi with a terrifying might. With a great boom, the world actually darkened due to their clash. A hole over a dozen kilometers wide appeared in the sky, sucking away all the color in the surroundings and causing the world to dull. The entire region of space shook violently because of Tai Ta and Ouyang Yangwen's attacks. At the same time, great pulses of energy struck the ground, causing the fractured continent to experience a tremendous earthquake. The ground shook and mountains tittered. A bottomless pit of several thousand kilometers in width appeared around the tunnel. Tai Ta's face changed after experiencing the attack. He could not help but take a few steps back. On the other hand, Ouyang Yangwen remained where he was, standing as still as a mountain. When the terrifying pulses of energy approached him, they split into two due to an invisible power and went around him. So powerful. Reciprocity sure is great, Tai Ta thought. He was extremely grim. He had used his full strength before, yet Ouyang Yangwen had not even used his sword. Just a strand of sword chi from his finger was on par with Tai Ta or slightly more powerful. When Tai Ta emerged from Erjin's grave, he only possessed the power to fight Ouyang Yangwen 20 years ago. He remained within the Supreme Divine Hall for 17 of those 20 years, so instead of experiencing an increase in strength, he had rapidly consumed all of his energy. He was obviously not Ouyang Yangwen's opponent now that he had reached reciprocity. Your strength's impressive, no weaker than me 20 years ago, but now, I can kill you with just a flip of my hand, Ouyang Yangwen said coldly. He looked at Tai Ta like he was already dead. A sword appeared in his hand while his presence underwent an overwhelming change, fusing with his sword. His body shone with a resplendent glow as he charged toward Tai Ta as a streak of light. He moved unbelievably fast. Houston, the sea goddess, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, the winged tiger god, Feng Xiaotian, Yang Lai, and Gue Haidao simultaneously appeared before Tai Ta. They attacked together to fend off Ouyang Yangwen. However, Ouyang Yangwen's strength with his sword drawn was just unbelievable. Even with all of the Origin Realm experts working together, they were not Ouyang Yangwen's opponent. Ouyang Yangwen's sword collided with them, causing all of them fly backward and spit out blood. Only Tai Ta did not spit out any blood. A terrifying wound from the sword appeared on Xiao Jin, Feng Xiaotian, Yang Lai, and Gue Haidao. This shocked everyone. Ouyang Yangwen was just too powerful. The combined efforts of 9 Origin Realm experts was actually not enough to withstand a single attack from Ouyang Yangwen. Where is Jian Chen? Why don't I see him? Where's he hiding? Ouyang Yangwen glanced over the Origin Realm experts from the Tian Yuan continent and immediately frowned, but he soon coldly smiled. Since Jian Chen's not here, I'll kill you first and then look for him. Cold killing intent appeared in Ouyang Yangwen's eyes. He stabbed out with a resplendent glow, mercilessly attacking the Origin Realm experts. But, just as he stabbed out, the space before the Origin Realm experts ripped open without any prior signs. A hand, with long and slender fingers, reached out. The index and middle finger of the hand formed a sword and launched a sword chi with a dazzling glow. The sword chi shot toward Ouyang Yangwen at a speed several times faster than his attack. The sword chi was not large, only a meter wide. It could not compare to Ouyang Yangwen, both in size and in presence. However, Ouyang Yangwen's face suddenly changed when the sword chi appeared. Chapter 1593, A Mighty Return, 2, The Sword Chi, which was not as large and didn't seem as mighty, gave Ouyang Yangwen the chills. He felt an unprecedented threat from the sword chi. It surged toward him with the presence of death. Ouyang Yangwen felt his limbs become extremely cold the moment the sword chi, which was less than a meter long, locked onto him. The coldness spread throughout his entire body. Ouyang Yangwen's heart suddenly sank. He immediately tried to dodge, but the sword chi was moving too fast. It was too late for him to dodge. It collided with his attack in a single moment. Ding! With the sound of metal colliding, the light from Ouyang Yangwen's sword immediately dispersed. The sword chi continued on with an unstoppable force, colliding with Ouyang Yangwen's sword and producing a streak of beautiful sparks. Ouyang Yangwen's sword was actually knocked out of his hand, and he experienced an extreme force, which traveled from his sword, into his right arm, and then into his body, causing him to shudder violently. His entire right sleeve turned to dust, revealing his thin arm. However, the arm was covered in blood now. It oozed from his pores. Ouyang Yangwen was extremely shocked. He became filled with disbelief when he felt the intense pain from his right arm. He had reached reciprocity now, making him one of the most powerful experts in the world of Forsaken Saints, let alone the Tian Yuan continent. Yet, he had been injured by a single strand of sword chi, and the sword chi had not come from any powerful treasure. It had come from 2 fingers. Who is it? How can there be someone so powerful in this world? Ouyang Yangwen snarled inside. His heart began to beat uncontrollably. He became extremely stern and lost his composure and the arrogance he had revealed before. Ouyang Yangwen's eyes narrowed and he felt even more shocked. He discovered that the sword chi had not dispersed after smashing through his attack and clashing with his sword. It continued to shoot toward him as a streak of white light. The sword chi moved just too fast, as if it had exceeded the boundaries of time and space. It had arrived in a single moment and, even with Ouyang Yangwen's strength at reciprocity, he was only able to watch it approach him without being able to do anything at all. Spurt! The sword chi pierced through Ouyang Yangwen's chest and continued toward the tunnel behind him. The sword chi created an endless rumble in the tunnel and caused it violently shake. Bang! It was also at this moment that Ouyang Yangwen's chest exploded, raining blood and pieces of flesh. A head-sized hole had appeared in his chest. His flesh and organs were gone. The sword chi from before contained an abnormally powerful and violent energy. The energy was so great that Ouyang Yangwen's body was unable to withstand it. His body exploded when the energy passed through him. Ouyang Yangwen grunted before being sent flying like a loose arrow. He was pale and very heavily injured. Xiongzhong placed a hand on Ouyang Yangwen's back and dispersed the force driving him backward. He glanced at Ouyang Yangwen's wounds and his eyes narrowed. He stared at the hand, which had come out of nowhere, and became extremely grim. The 5 Receival elders revealed drastically different expressions. They stared at the huge hole in Ouyang Yangwen's chest with disbelief. Ouyang Yangwen possessed a status equivalent to past spirit kings in the world of Forsaken Saints. He was an existence that had made it to the very apex since, according to the records of the foreign world, reciprocity was the limit. No one had ever made it to godhood, meaning reciprocity experts reigned supreme. Yet, the person who was supposed to reign supreme had been injured after a single clash, and they did not even know who had attacked. They all felt extremely astounded by this, making them shiver with fear. All the experts on the side of the Tian Yuan continent were stunned. Many people's eyes widened unnaturally as they gazed at the hand with shock, disbelief, and some hope. The sea goddess, Houston, Tai Ta, and all the other Origin Realm experts experienced the same emotions. No one paid any attention to Ouyang Yangwen. All of their focus was on the hand, as if the hand had become the only thing in their world. It's Big Brother. I knew Big Brother would return. Xiao Ling was the first to respond, joyfully crying out. She clapped as she jumped up and down. She was in high spirits. At the same time, the White Tiger and Xiao Jin recognized the owner of the hand. They immediately became flooded with joy. One of them was a winged tiger god and possessed an extremely sensitive sense of smell. The other possessed a droplet of Jian Chen's essence blood. They were both extremely familiar with Jian Chen's presence. Big Brother? Is it Jian Chen? The other Origin Realm experts and the many sainthood fighters all clearly heard what Xiao Ling said. They were dumbfounded before becoming overwhelmed with disbelief. Was it really Jian Chen? Just a single strand of sword chi created from his fingers had heavily wounded the undefeatable Ouyang Yangwen. None of them remembered Jian Chen being so powerful. Even after 20 years, it was impossible for him to become so powerful. At this moment, the space where the hand was began to rapidly widen. Under everyone's nervous and excited gazes, it rapidly formed a space gate, and a young man in white robes with 2 swords on his back emerged. Beside him was a beauty in a purple dress holding a zither. To no surprise, the 2 of them were Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er. It's Sovereign Jian Chen. Sovereign Jian Chen has returned. When the 2 of them appeared, everyone cried out in excitement. They were experiencing joy and many other emotions after having avoided death. Jian Chen, how can it be you? On the other side, Xiong Zhong cried out as well. His eyes had drastically widened. He refused to believe that the mysterious expert who had just heavily injured Ouyang Yangwen in a single attack was Jian Chen. This was because Jian Chen had still been slightly weaker than him 20 years ago. Jian Chen had only emerged victorious during their battle due to his extraordinary patience and recovery abilities. However, Xiongzhong had broken through to reciprocity after 20 years while it should have been impossible for Jian Chen's strength to advance due to the lack of origin energy within the past 20 years. How could he suddenly become so powerful? Ouyang Yangwen removed a pill from his space ring and ate it while in great pain. His body immediately began to heal. Even the hole in his chest became filled with new flesh. He also stared at Jian Chen in shock. He had come with a mindset for revenge. Having reached reciprocity, he no longer attached any importance to Jian Chen, but he had never thought that the reality would be so brutal. He had actually been heavily injured after a single attack by someone he had never treated seriously, which was something he was unable to accept. Chapter 1594, 1 against 7, Impossible, Impossible, this is impossible. You were weaker than me 20 years ago and only possessed the battle prowess of someone barely at late returnance. It's impossible for your strength to change so much in just 2 short decades. Ouyang Yangwen closely stared at Jian Chen. There was an uncontainable amount of shock and fear in his eyes. Were you hiding your strength before? Ouyang Yangwen asked. He was extremely grim. He refused to believe that someone could increase his or her strength so drastically in just 20 years without origin energy. This rate of improvement was just far too shocking. Even their spirit king, the most impressive genius in all of history, could not have improved his strength so quickly. Sob, Big Brother, you've finally returned. I knew you would return. So many people said that you abandoned us and went to the saint's world, Xiaoling cried as she arrived beside Jian Chen. She clung to his arm while choking back her tears. The people who had once said that Jian Chen had abandoned them revealed distraught expressions. They became filled with regret and uneasiness, afraid that Jian Chen would look into the matter. After all, what they had said before was heresy. They were slandering a sovereign that had once assisted them. Jian Chen looked at Xiaoling with gentle eyes and he could not help but reveal his adoration for her. He said, Xiaoling, would never abandon you all. It's been tough for you these years. Leave the rest to me. Xiaoling firmly nodded. She looked at Ouyang Yangwen furiously and unhappily said, Brother, that baddie is so evil. He injured Brother Xiaojing and everyone else and wanted to kill us. You have to teach him a lesson for us. Jian Chen rubbed Xiaoling's head and gently said, Don't worry, Xiaoling. I will never let Ouyang Yangwen off. I'll teach him a lesson right now. With that, Jian Chen slowly raised his head and faced Ouyang Yangwen. A frigid killing intent radiated from him. Ouyang Yangwen had mostly recovered after consuming an extremely precious medicine. The vanished flesh on his chest had regrown. Ouyang Yangwen immediately felt his heart tighten when he saw Jian Chen staring at him. He said with a deep voice, In just 2 short decades, his strength has reached a level we can't match. He must have used a power that didn't belong to him earlier. We may not know where he obtained this power, but he definitely can't use it for long, and it'll be gone for good after he uses it. Let's get into the 7 killings formation to deal with him. Since the power doesn't belong to him, let's use the formation to pool our power together and waste away the thing that does not belong to him, Xiongzhong agreed with Ouyang Yangwen. He did not believe that Jian Chen could elevate his own strength to such a level in such a short amount of time because it was just too unbelievable. Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen worked together once more, jumping into their positions for the 7 killings formation with the 5 returnants elders behind them. Even though Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen were sworn rivals, they now feared Jian Chen and his newfound power, so they temporarily placed their personal differences aside without any hesitation and chose to work together. The 7 origin realm experts from the foreign world immediately pooled their powers together by using the 7 killings formation. They erupted with a surging might. Just the presence that formed made space collapse and the ground sink. At that moment, the entire world seemed to shake in fear. The presence was just too powerful. It had far exceeded early reciprocity, reaching mid-reciprocity. It had exceeded the limits of what the surroundings could endure. 7 as 1, 7 killing sword. The 7 origin realm experts yelled together. All of them were extremely stern as they let the origin energy within them surge out without any restraint. A blood-red sword chi that was 30 meters wide condensed above them. It let out a demonic red light and gave off shocking ripples of energy, ripping through space and causing huge cracks to form in the surroundings. At that moment, the entire world dimmed. The scorching sun lost its color while the stars stopped twinkling. The entire sky was filled with spatial cracks, which is a shocking and terrifying sight to behold. All the origin realm experts from the Tian Yuan continent became extremely stern. They could sense just how terrifying the energy hidden within the blood-red sword chi was. It truly could destroy the world. If the energy inside the sword erupted, there would be nothing left of the continent. Moor, guard the continent, Jian Chen said with a heavy voice. His eyes were extremely cold while his killing intent for the foreign experts grew. The Tian Yuan continent was fragile. Just battles between Saint Emperors would heavily damage the continent, let alone a combined attack formed by 7 origin realm experts. If the sword chi erupted, the Tian Yuan continent would definitely experience an apocalypse. Shangguan Moor also understood the severity of the situation. Without any hesitation, she immediately sat down and began to rapidly play her zither. She did not use her music to control the souls of the origin realm experts. Her strength had increased drastically, having reached mid-reciprocity, but the people she faced were not weak. There were 5 returnants and 2 reciprocity experts. It was not impossible for her to control the 7 of them with her music, but she could not achieve control in a single moment. She needed to charge up, but she clearly did not have enough time right now, so she chose to use another method. As she played the zither, huge ripples appeared in space. Each ripple was several dozen meters thick and stretched as far as the eye could see. From afar, they looked like the strings of a zither that had been enlarged countless times. As the ripples in space rapidly spread out, they formed a huge ring, which enveloped a region that was 10,000 kilometers away. Shangguan Mu'er seemed to have formed a cave, fencing off this region and making it a whole different world. At the same time, the 7 Origin Realm experts used the formation. The blood-red sword Qi shot toward Jian Chen with lightning-like speed. It possessed a mighty and devastating presence. Its terrifying pressure caused the many sainthood experts of the Tian Yuan continent to spit blood from their mouths. Even saint kings struggled to protect themselves from the terrifying pressure. Jian Chen coldly snorted while his gaze became extremely frigid. He used his fingers as a sword. A dazzling light gathered from the surroundings, condensing into a strand of sword Qi in a single moment. He took a step and suddenly vanished. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the blood-red sword Qi. He stabbed the red sword Qi with the white sword Qi in his hand. Chapter 1595, Killing Their Way into the Foreign World. 1. The demonic, blood-red sword Qi had been cast through a formation that had combined the strength of the 7 Origin Realm experts. It was extremely powerful and could easily destroy the world, but the sword Qi immediately began to disperse after being stabbed with the sword Qi condensed around Jian Chen's fingers. In the blink of an eye, the extremely consolidated sword Qi showed signs of dispersing. Boom! A moment later, the blood-red sword Qi exploded. The explosion produced a bright, red light as a terrifying wave of energy shot in all directions in the form of sharp sword Qi. The wave was dense and filled the entire sky. With a wave of his right hand, a huge sword Qi suddenly condensed in Jian Chen's hand. He then swept his hand through the space before him. The strike seemed ordinary and did not erupt with anything powerful, but it was basically unstoppable. The scattered red sword Qi dispersed wherever Jian Chen's sword Qi went, protecting the people of the Tian Yuan continent. At the same time, the Origin Realm experts of the Tian Yuan continent worked together and erected a barrier of energy. They blocked the residual shockwave and prevented the people of the 4 races from being injured. Jian Chen could only protect a small region and was unable to stop all the residual sword Qi after the blood-red sword Qi erupted, so a terrifying energy wreaked havoc in the directions he could not protect. In those directions, space trembled and shattered as large pieces collapsed. The continent below immediately collapsed, forming a bottomless abyss. The entire continent shook. When the residual shockwave reached a distance of 10,000 kilometers, it was stopped by Shangguan Mu'er protective measures. However, the ground within that region had vanished, now reduced to a bottomless pit. The 7 Origin Realm experts all paled and grunted. They all rapidly staggered back, and the 5 elders could not help but vomit blood. Their faces were filled with shock. This is impossible. Ouyang Yangwen and Xiongzhong stared at Jian Chen at a loss. Disbelief flooded their faces. They could clearly sense the power of laws that belonged to the way of the sword from the clash just then. The power they sensed was definitely much greater than what Jian Chen could display 20 years ago. It was on the level of the Spirit King. Both Jian Chen's strength and comprehension of the way of the sword is far greater than 20 years ago. Is this his true strength, not because of some foreign power? Xiongzhong was tongue-tied. He felt like he was about to suffocate when he reached such a conclusion. Jian Chen's strength had become so powerful that it was just terrifying. They were no longer able to connect Jian Chen's easy, composed demeanor to how desperately he had fought 20 years ago. Retreat. Ouyang Yangwen decisively made a decision and ordered a retreat without any hesitation. What else could they use to fight Jian Chen now that the 7 Killings formation had been stopped? Let's go. Return to the world of forsaken saints. Xiongzhong gave the same order as well. He immediately fled to the tunnel with the 5 elders and Ouyang Yangwen in a miserable shape, attempting to return to their world as soon as possible. Don't let them escape. They're baddies. They'll come again if they make it back. Xiao Ling frantically yelled from behind. She really disliked Ouyang Yangwen. Not only had Ouyang Yangwen injured all the origin realm experts of the Tian Yuan continent, but he had even cleaved her brother, Xiao Jin, in half. Jian Chen coldly gazed at the 7 people retreating, but he did not pursue them. He gently shook his head when he heard Xiao Ling's frantic voice and said, "Don't worry, Xiao Ling. I will take revenge for you, but the battle can't happen on the Tian Yuan continent, because even if I kill them, the Tian Yuan continent will be destroyed. Brother, you've finally returned. I had thought that I would never see you again." A joyful sob came from the group of people behind the origin realm experts. Bai Lian charged out of the crowd and arrived beside Jian Chen as quickly as possible. She was filled with emotion and jubilance from managing to avoid disaster. After Bai Lian ran forward, Yu Yu, Huang Wan, Nubis, Xiao Tianyu, Qin Shao, and a few other people that Jian Chen was familiar with excitedly walked out of the crowd. They looked at Jian Chen with smiles. Shangguan Aojian, Xiao Qian, and Xiao Yu were also among the crowd. Yu Yu glanced at Shangguan Mu'er from time to time. The light in her eyes flickered as her feelings became mixed. She gently sighed. At that moment, no one could understand her feelings. There was bitterness mixed with her joy. Jian Chen comforted Bai Lian before slowly glancing over the group of people present. He sternly said, "The world of forsaken saints is extremely powerful. Even with our increased strength, stopping them won't be easy. Not to mention, they have an unfathomable spirit king, so Mu'er and I will immediately advance to the foreign world and deal a heavy blow to them before they have made sufficient preparations. The battle will be in their world. The Tian Yuan continent has cracked into pieces, because of the battle all those years ago, so it's time for the foreign world to pay the price." "Jian Chen, we'll come with you," Houston said in a steady voice. "Uncle Xiao, because of your guy's protection, the Tian Yuan continent has been able to last until now for 20 years. You can leave the rest to me and Mu'er now," Jian Chen replied while giving Houston a gentle look. He had always felt grateful for Houston's help. Even though his strength had increased a tremendous amount, Houston was one of the people he respected the most. "Great-grandson, you must be careful. The Spirit King is very powerful. He was able to fight godhood experts 20 years ago, so who knows whether his strength has increased or not now. If you can't beat him, don't force yourself. Return as soon as possible," said Yang Lai. He was filled with relief and some pride. Jian Chen nodded. His gaze paused on Shangguan Aojian for a while before he entered the tunnel with Shangguan Mu'er. Time was tight right now. They could not afford to give the foreign world enough time to prepare, so they decided to kill their way into the world of forsaken saints as quickly as possible and take them by surprise. They had no time to catch up at all. Thus, this was not a good time to publicly announce Xiao Bao's identity. Chapter 1596, Killing Their Way into the Foreign World, 2. Over 10 protectors from the Sacred Spirit Hall were gathered at the top of the world mountains in the world of forsaken saints. They leisurely conversed with each other. From time to time, they would glance at the entrance of the tunnel. "Elder Ouyang told us to wait here for orders 3 days ago. He entered the tunnel to attack the Divine Hall with Elder Xiongzhong and the 5 other elders. It's already been 3 days. Have they gotten through the Divine Hall blocking the exit yet?" A middle-aged man in golden, embroidered robes wondered aloud. Although Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen had both reached reciprocity and should not be regarded as elders anymore, the 2 of them were willing to maintain the position of an elder out of respect for the current Spirit King. As a result, everyone in the world of forsaken saints continued to refer to them as elders and not Spirit Kings. However, even though they were still elders, they would always be mentioned separately from the other 5 elders. Since Elder Ouyang has tasked us to wait here for orders, the Divine Hall will fall soon. Let's wait patiently. Once the Divine Hall gives way, Elder Ouyang will definitely contact us, another receival protector said. He was an old man who seemed ordinary, except for his eyes. His eyes were extremely deep, possessing the many vicissitudes of life. He had clearly lived for a very long time. Elder Ouyang and Elder Xiongzhong have both reached reciprocity. Either one of them will be able to flatten the other world. Having us wait for orders means we are only for cleaning up the aftermath. A middle-aged man in red robes added. He possessed a full head of fire-red hair. He was currently playing around with flames, which were leaping about his hands. Clearly, he was a fire-attributed origin realm expert. The other protectors all agreed with what the red-robed man said. Although the other world had driven them back once, the people there were still nothing compared to experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. Was there anyone who could stand up to a reciprocity expert in the other world? They, the protectors, would only be responsible for cleaning up the aftermath. At this moment, the tunnel became extremely unpeaceful. Streams of violent energy surged out into the world of Forsaken Saints, beyond the top of the mountain, before being dispersed by the spatial cracks and shockingly powerful lightning around the mountains. The protectors all stopped discussing their thoughts. All of them shifted their eyes to the tunnel. Invisible energy permeated the surroundings, isolating them from the streams of energy. They would not be harmed by any of the streams. These abnormalities must be because the Divine Hall on the other side has been breached. A similar thought appeared in the heads of many of the protectors. They had even begun to prepare to receive orders at any time and enter the tunnel. The streams of energy from the tunnel became even more violent. Gradually, the protectors all frowned. The wild streams of energy were several times more powerful than before. They could even feel, with their sharp senses, that the presence of some other power was present in the streams. The presence was extremely powerful, which surprised them all. Boom! It was also at this moment that the tunnel suddenly rumbled. An extremely powerful pulse of energy surged out, making all the protectors show a different expression and retreat as quickly as possible. Several figures shot from the tunnel among the stream of energy. They moved so fast that only a blur was visible. With the whistling of wind, all of them pulsed with powerful energy. To no surprise, these figures were Ouyang Yangwen and the others. They had passed through the tunnel as quickly as possible, thus, sweeping up a great stream of energy. This was why they had caused such a great disturbance when they charged out of the tunnel. It's Elder Ouyang and Elder Xiongzhong. The protectors recognized them and called out. Their faces were filled with confusion. They could not understand what Elder Ouyang and Xiongzhong were doing. They had actually charged out of the tunnel urgently and in miserable shapes, as if they had encountered something extremely terrifying. Quick, pass on my orders. Immediately summon all protectors here as soon as possible. We cannot wait. Before Ouyang Yangwen had even stabilized himself, he was loudly passing on an order. He was extremely grim. The protectors all became stunned. However, their faces suddenly changed when they noticed that Elder Ouyang was covered in blood. They became filled with disbelief, and without any hesitation, they passed on the message to the other protectors. Immediately summon all the guards of the Sacred Spirit Hall as well, Xiongzhong ordered sternly. You idiot! If Jianchen really does pursue us, how are you going to threaten him with Saint Emperors? Ouyang Yangwen swore at Xiongzhong, showing him no respect at all. Xiongzhong coldly glanced at Ouyang Yangwen's chest and said with a deep voice, the guards can get into formation. They may not be able to threaten Jianchen, but they are still better than nothing. They might be able to stop him temporarily during an important moment. Do you still want to be beaten up by Jianchen? Ouyang Yangwen's gaze turned cold and he snorted, no longer saying anything more. He had indeed suffered from Jianchen's hand. If it were not for his precious medicine, his wounds would probably be even more severe. Ouyang Yangwen formed a seal with his hands and there was a flash of light. He then said, I've contacted the Spirit King, but the Spirit King's in seclusion in the depths of the 3rd floor. He seems to be cut off from the world. We can't enter the 3rd floor, so I don't know if the Spirit King has received the message or not. Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu'er steadily made their way through the tunnel. They arrived at the entrance to the other world but were met with a layer of formations. They were unable to see what was going on in the foreign world at all. Be careful, they probably have an ambush set up, said Shangguan Mu'er. She was filled with caution. Jian Chen nodded slightly and said, Now, only the Spirit King truly worries me out of all the experts from the other world. It'll be very difficult for Ouyang Yangwen and the others to threaten me. Mu'er, follow behind me. With that, Jian Chen extended a finger and shot a strand of resplendent sword qi toward the formation. The formation was not very powerful. Its true purpose was to cover the entrance to the world of Forsaken Saints and act as an alerting mechanism. It loudly crumbled due to Jian Chen's sword qi. All the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints had gathered at the top of the world mountains, aside from the Spirit King. Although they had lost many people on the Tianyuan continent, they still had over 30 receival experts, 5 returnance experts, and 2 reciprocity experts, so the total amount of experts present approached 40. All the Origin Realm experts from the foreign world waited in a great formation. The moment the formation over the tunnel entrance shattered, they all struck out together. They had all learned about the severity of the situation because of a detailed explanation from the 5 elders, so they did not hold back at all when they struck out. They used everything they had right from the start. Origin energy violently surged from close to 40 Origin Realm experts. They were sending their strongest attacks toward the entrance of the tunnel. Their attacks fused together after entering the tunnel, forming an extremely powerful pillar of light, which was condensed from Origin energy. It surged through the tunnel with a terrifying presence, headed toward Jian Chen. Chapter 1597, God-slaying formation. Jian Chen had expected this long ago. His face did not change at all and his chaotic force went into a rampage at that moment. It condensed into a sword qi in his right hand that was the size of a regular sword but radiated a destructive presence. At the same time, a dazzling sword qi was condensed from the way of the sword as well. It fused with the chaotic force and produced pulses of a destructive energy. This was Jian Chen's 8th layer chaotic force and his comprehension at the major achievement of sword origin. Either power by itself possessed a shocking might, so fusing them together made the attack extremely terrifying. As Jian Chen stabbed out, the entire world trembled. The space at the top of the world mountains shattered while the mysterious power that permeated its surroundings completely dispersed. The lightning in the surroundings collapsed before it could even escape from Jian Chen's attack. Jian Chen's strike had exceeded mid-reciprocity and reached late reciprocity. At the same time, the attack contained the power of laws from the way of the sword, so it was extraordinary when compared to the attacks of other late reciprocity experts. The sword qi collided with the pillar of energy, which had been created by close to 40 Origin Realm experts, and immediately erupted with a boom. The strike was extremely terrifying, causing space to shatter. The entire mountain range violently shook as countless boulders fell. The mountain range they fought on was not just any old mountain range. This mountain range was the shockingly tough World Mountains, which did not become severely damaged from the aftermath of that attack. However, the tremors of the mountain caused a huge reaction across the entire world. As the mountains violently shook, the entire world of Forsaken Saints experienced a great earthquake, causing countless mountains around the world to fall and collapse. The ground fissured as well. The world mountains were the heart of the world of Forsaken Saints. Any disturbances at the heart would directly affect the rest of the world. The pillar of energy from all the Origin Realm experts dispersed as a terrifying pulse of power. All of them could not help but stagger back as the power swept toward them, forcing them to pale as blood flowed from the corner of their mouths. Jian Chen's long hair only drifted in the air. He made his way out of the tunnel step by step, withstanding the terrifying pulse of power. The sword chi in his hand had not dispersed yet, but its flickering light had dulled. All the Origin Realm experts stared at the unscathed Jian Chen while their hearts churned. Even Ouyang Yangwen, Xiong Zhong, and the 5 other elders were unable to keep composed. After all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints had worked together this time. The power they had displayed had approached, or had even reached, late reciprocity, yet such an attack had failed to even leave a mark on Jian Chen. They struggled to believe their eyes. Suddenly, Jian Chen disappeared from where he had been standing. He charged toward Ouyang Yangwen as a blur. His eyes were cold while a powerful killing intent poured out uncontrollably. The temperature of the surroundings suddenly plummeted. Ouyang Yangwen had injured Xiao Ling and Xiao Jin on the Tian Yuan continent. He had injured Tai Ta and the White Tiger. Jian Chen's sister had even become heavily injured because of him, and, this time in particular, all the Origin Realm experts on the Tian Yuan continent probably would have been slain by him if Jian Chen had not made it back in time. As a result, Jian Chen's killing intent for Ouyang Yangwen was sky-high. Get into the God-slaying formation. As Jian Chen charged toward Ouyang Yangwen, Xiong Zhong yelled out. His voice was slightly faster than the time Jian Chen took to arrive before Ouyang Yangwen. Jian Chen brushed by Ouyang Yangwen. As a blur, he sent the sword chi in his hand toward Ouyang Yangwen's head. The sword chi passed through Ouyang Yangwen's head without any obstructions. It did not even manage to draw blood. Ouyang Yangwen's figure faded in front Jian Chen, completely disappearing altogether. The Origin Realm experts from the World Mountains also vanished. Jian Chen no longer stood in the world of Forsaken Saints but in a hazy space. The space of a formation, Jian Chen sighed in surprise as he looked around emotionlessly. The world of Forsaken Saints sure had an impressive heritage, far greater than what the Tian Yuan continent had. They even had formations that could be used by Origin Realm experts. At this moment, a powerful sword chi shot out of nowhere, heading toward Jian Chen while filled with a devastating power. The power contained in the sword chi had reached mid-reciprocity, nearing late reciprocity. Moreover, it was not a single sword chi. After it appeared, the surroundings violently twisted once again, and soon after the first, a second, third, and fourth appeared, until there was 9 of them. Each sword chi radiated with a devastating presence and was equivalent to the first sword chi in terms of power. The 9 strands of sword chi filled the surroundings, trapping Jian Chen. A supreme sword intent radiated out and permeated the space around him. Suddenly, the 9 strands of sword chi all let out a resplendent light before shooting toward Jian Chen, as if they could destroy everything. The power is only slightly weaker than late reciprocity. My chaotic body at the 8th layer is equivalent to the peak of early reciprocity. If I add my way of the sword, there are barely any late reciprocity experts that are my opponent, Jian Chen murmured, feeling at ease. Deep interest filled his eyes. His soul had already reached late reciprocity, so the imperfect space was obviously unable to keep his senses trapped. He had expanded his soul outside and could clearly see the formation. It had been created on an ancient formation diagram. Ouyang Yangwen and the others all used the diagram to form the formation. The moment the 9 sword chi shot out, all the Origin Realm experts taking part in the formation paled. At that moment, a third of the origin energy within them was drained by the formation. The God-slaying formation was obtained by the Spirit King after breaking through the seal in the very depths of the sacred Spirit Hall, which he then passed on to them. If they pushed its power to the limits, they could kill gods, but they had not fully grasped the intricacies of the formation yet, and with their limited strength, they were unable to push the formation to the limits, which is why the toll exacted on them was so harsh. They only had enough in them for 3 attacks, and after that, they would be out of power. I refuse to believe that Jian Chen can survive. Although this god-slaying formation is rarely used, it can heavily injure late reciprocity experts, possibly even kill them, said Ouyang Yangwen coldly. As soon as he thought about how Jian Chen had fended off all the Origin Realm experts earlier, he shivered inside. Ouyang Yangwen had never thought that Jian Chen's strength would grow to the point where he could only look up to him after 20 years. We can only use 3 attacks. If we fail to kill him after these 3 attacks, we can only rely on the Spirit King. I wonder if the Spirit King has received our message, Xiong Zhong said in an extremely grim voice. Chapter 1598. The Spirit King appears. Many of the protectors and elders became bitter inside when they heard what Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen had said. They all felt extremely indignant. 20 years ago, the overall strength of the Tianyuan continent was nothing in their eyes. If it were not for the extraordinarily powerful divine hall that had suddenly appeared, they would have conquered the other world already, but they would never have thought that their world would actually be forced into such a state 20 years later, where they had to pool all their power into a formation to temporarily stop Jian Chen. If the formation collapsed and the Spirit King did not appear, all of them would probably die. It had just been 20 years, yet the situation had drastically changed. Many of the Origin Realm experts from the foreign world were unable to accept the new situation even now. A huge statue stood in the depths of the 3rd floor of the Sacred Spirit Hall. Its eyes had been destroyed, replaced by 2 sword slashes. A gate that seemed like a space gate was hidden within the statue's eyes, and it seemed to lead to a wonderland. The origin energy was several times denser than the outside world. A middle-aged man sat in the wonderland and cultivated. His appearance was nothing special, but a terrifying presence, enough to make the world to shake, radiated from him unconsciously. It shot into the air, and just a wave of his hand would have been enough to collapse an entire region of space. His presence was terrifyingly great. The middle-aged man was the Spirit King, the strongest existence that had ever appeared in the world of Forsaken Saints in all of history. At this moment, the Spirit King slowly opened his eyes. His face was neutral, bearing no particular emotions at all. He indifferently glanced at the world around him and only spoke after a while of silence. The laws of this world are incomplete, and there seems to be a hidden restriction. Is it really impossible to reach godhood in this world? Am I unable to truly reach that realm even after comprehending laws and grasping the key to godhood? After 20 years of cultivation, my strength has reached late reciprocity. I have arrived at the very peak of reciprocity, but I still can't break through to godhood. Can I only truly reach godhood after venturing to the saints' world? The world of Forsaken Saints isn't a real world after all. After unlocking the secrets of the spirit sages hidden here, I agreed to Senior He 2 request and will take the spirit sages back to the saints' world, but the tunnel to the saints' world is in the other world. Since I can't break through, continuing my seclusion is pointless. It's time for me to leave, the Spirit King murmured quietly. At this moment, his face suddenly changed, and with a flip of his hand, a simple medallion appeared. It was rapidly flashing with a dazzling red light. The Spirit King frowned. This is a message of the highest priority. This is only used when something extremely significant has happened. What's happened? With that, the Spirit King vanished from the miniature world. As if he had teleported, he reappeared inside the Sacred Spirit Hall. 9 extremely sharp sword chi condensed around Jian Chen, who was in the formation space. With a single thought, Jian Chen's 9 sword chi turned into streaks of light and shot toward the strands of sword chi that had been condensed by the formation with lightning-like speed. With a boom, a total of 18 strands of sword chi collided and produced a terrifying force. They made the realm of the formation violently shake. The many Origin Realm experts who took part in the formation all jerked. They all grunted while blood oozed from the corner of the protectors' mouths. Quick, the second attack. Ouyang Yangwen was extremely grim and immediately ordered everyone to use the second attack. The Spirit King was not present right now, so if they could not stop Jian Chen, they would all face the true threat of death. All the Origin Realm experts gritted their teeth. A sliver of madness filled their eyes as they channeled their origin energy into the formation for a second attack. However, Jian Chen did not give them any time to form the second attack. He used his chaotic force and way of the sword to condense a sword chi over a meter long and shot it at the space above him. Boom! Jian Chen's attack had reached the level of late reciprocity, clearly exceeding the limits of the formation space. With a great boom, the entire formation collapsed. The formation was destroyed so quickly not because the god-slaying formation was not powerful. Instead, Ouyang Yangwen and the others had only grasped part of it, and with their limited strength, the formation that was known to slay gods could only demonstrate limited power. The formation was powerful enough to easily kill early and even mid-reciprocity experts, but it was useless against late returnants. As soon as the formation was destroyed, all the Origin Realm experts experienced an extremely great backlash. They all spat out blood, staring at Jian Chen in shock as he emerged from the formation. Jian Chen took to the sky, and above him hovered an ancient scroll, giving off a strange presence. He grabbed the scroll and could clearly see 3 words on it: God-slaying formation. The ancient scroll was crucial to using the formation. Jian Chen did not study the scroll in great detail. He casually placed it into his space ring. He knew that it was an ancestral treasure and could even kill gods when its true power was demonstrated. Jian Chen then condensed a strand of sword chi in his hand and aggressively charged toward Ouyang Yangwen without any hesitation. Ouyang Yangwen's face drastically changed and he rapidly retreated. At the same time, a blood-red world was conjured behind him. A blood-red sun and crescent moon replaced each other. He was using his secret technique. Xiongzhong moved at the same time, using the same secret technique, copying Ouyang Yangwen. The secret technique was the most powerful attack they possessed. They had run out of choices while facing Jian Chen, so they could only put up a desperate last stand. Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen used all 3 forms of the secret technique at the same time, but the attacks were nothing to Jian Chen since the 2 of them were only early reciprocity experts. Jian Chen tore through their secret techniques like a hot knife through butter. The sword chi in his hand glowed with a dazzling white light as he stabbed it toward Ouyang Yangwen's forehead without any hesitation at all. Jian Chen. At this moment, a heavy voice reverberated through the surroundings. It smashed through the sky like a clap of thunder. Following the voice was a terrifying sword chi, which permeated the surroundings. On the horizon, a dark metal sword shot toward the world mountains at the speed of lightning, tearing through space. It had reached an unimaginable speed, reaching the top of the world mountains in a single moment. It shot toward Jian Chen with a terrifying presence. Wherever the sword passed, the space behind it collapsed, becoming pitch black. It left a trail of darkness behind it. It looked like a black line was being drawn across the world from afar. It's the Spirit King. Jian Chen jumped to a conclusion and immediately became stern. With the arrival of the Spirit King, the stab Jian Chen was sending toward Ouyang Yangwen paused, but it soon continued on. He was extremely determined in killing Ouyang Yangwen. However, Ouyang Yangwen managed to use everything he had to dodge the fatal strike because Jian Chen paused for a second. However, his arm was chopped off by Jian Chen's sword chi. Jian Chen's eyes were icy cold and killing intent still lingered inside them. He formed a seal with one of his hands and the Ziying sword on his back thrummed, flying out as a dazzling streak of violet light. It went to receive the dark metal sword without any fear. As the Ziying sword shot away, the sky rumbled. Large regions of space collapsed wherever the Ziying sword went. It radiated a supreme sword chi, which filled the surroundings and conflicted with the Spirit King's sword chi. Its influence on the surroundings was no weaker than the metal sword. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.